Good afternoon, everyone. How are you guys doing? What's going on? Welcome to episode 9 of Merchants of Novigrad, a bi-weekly podcast where we discuss everything Gwent. Today with me is my trusty co-host, Baby Joseph, commonly known as BJ. And as you guys can see, this time around, we have not one but two amazing guests. The Gwent Challenger winner and one of the most prolific competitive players, Freddybabes, and the official Gwent tournament caster and the object of countless puns made by Jaguars, ImpetuousPanda. How are you guys doing?
Very good. How are you guys?
I'm good too.
All good. Before we actually start, a few words to our viewers. Guys, if you have any questions for our guests, you can ask them in chat. My dear friend BJ has been charged with the task of collecting the more interesting ones, and we're going to try to answer them as we go. Also, if you want to stay in touch off stream, you can follow us on Twitter at Novigrad Podcast, and if YouTube is the platform where you would rather watch the episode, it is going to be uploaded to my YouTube channel in a couple of hours. So, without further ado, the first segment, what have you been up to? Any New Year's resolution, guys? Anything exciting happening?
Ready?
I wouldn't say I have any resolutions, but definitely going to be trying to get in shape for World Masters in Gwent, and yeah, just playing more of the game than I have been the past couple of months. That could probably count as a resolution, I guess. Yeah.
I guess similar for me. I think I'm going to do a lot more Gwent stuff. Obviously, living with Freddy now makes it easier and more exciting to do that kind of stuff as well. And also personally, I want to kind of it's like the first time I'm living independently, let's say. And I want to kind of take the advantage to improve myself, like in terms of, I don't know, living with someone else, and I'm getting into baking now, so mostly just like self-improvement.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I made some cookies. Probably didn't like them.
I like them, but
I mean,
you can't have too many cookies.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
and chat, if you are wondering how Panda made it to this show, he basically, sent us some stuff, some cookies and cakes, and that basically sealed the deal. But yeah, how's life as roommates? Because I can imagine that not everyone in chat knew that you guys live together.
Yeah, it's all right. I was living alone before for a year. It's a bit weird, moving in with someone and that whole process of just having to be very clean and quiet at nighttime and stuff like that. But it's nice having him around to talk to, especially about games and all the esports stuff that's going on. But yeah.
Oh yeah, we are definitely gonna talk about esports more. But do you guys enjoy Warsaw? Because I imagine it must have been huge to move from another country to Poland. I realize you are somewhat accustomed to Warsaw because you attended the tournaments, but those were mostly short stays. So how is it different to actually living in the city and experiencing it every single day?
For me, I think, coming from Madrid, obviously, was hot climate overall in summer, and also like not hot in the winter, but still pretty warm. The biggest shock, I think, was the daylight hours. It being dark at 4 p.m. meant that you kind of have to try and shift your schedule a bit towards the morning, or else you don't really get any sunlight. So I'm not a vampire just yet, so that's kind of a bad part. But everything else is pretty nice. I think the quality of life is pretty good. It's pretty cheap compared to anywhere else in Europe. I think it's also a big thing. And it's a nice city. It has a lot of culture. It has a lot of interesting things to do. Not the greatest city in Europe, but a pretty nice city overall.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot as well. Just chill, cheap, and just a good place to be.
Yeah, if you think it's cold, I think one of the ways to solve that problem is to just go for a walk or go and jog a little bit around the city. And speaking of jogging and running and any kind of physical activity, 5K with Buzia earlier today. How did it go?
I think it went according to plan. My estimates were correct. Buzia, obviously, for people that don't know, is pretty much an elite runner of sorts. He's preparing for a marathon now. So I didn't really plan to beat. I tried to beat him, but that wasn't going to happen, I think. And I just started running again like a month ago, and not that regularly. But it was nice. He finished, I think, like third overall. So you could tell he's like at a very high level. Like he's a race with like 5K people. and I finished like a minute or two after him. So not terrible,
Not
but
too bad. Yeah.
kind of okay. I guess.
How did you end
Not
up?
great, but not terrible.
Yeah, how
I think I
did
was
you
like
end up?
top 50 probably in like the total. So
Oh wow, that's
okay.
really good.
It's impressive, man. So how did you end up running with Buja?
Well, when I moved here, I told him that I knew he was running to get back into it. So I kind of
see.
put it like as a goal to come here. I want to do a half marathon before I leave Warsaw, if I leave in May, which I'm not sure about yet. So that was one of the goals. So obviously having Burge as like someone to look up to and like a mentor and that kind of thing, and someone to run with is nice. I took advantage, I guess, of that.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and to check all the boxes, BJ, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing great, man. Like life has been treating me very well lately. I got a job, full-time job now, so I don't have that much time for streaming anymore, but I try to stream part-time now. So I try to make a combination out of working and like streaming. Aside of that, yeah, I try to still work on some content for Gwent. So yeah, I mean, almost done with my studies as well. So yeah, things are looking bright.
Speaking of Gwent content, how has Gwent been treating you guys?
Yeah,
You
pretty good.
don't have to go into specifics, just overall, how do you feel about Gwent right now?
Yeah, I think I took a bit of a break, and I think Panda did as well. Kind of after Iron Judgment happened, so I didn't really play at all for like a couple of months, and I think that's really helped. Coming back to it feels a lot, a lot more fresh. And the game can be frustrating sometimes, as it always is when you're trying to climb and improve, right, and be better. But it definitely feels not too bad and quite quite new and different. A lot of the stuff I see a lot of people complaining about things, but I'm not really feeling a similar sort of being tired with the meta or whatever, because I haven't been playing it that much. So yeah, no, it's going good.
Yeah, you can't be tired of meta if you're not playing. Smart?
Exactly.
We smart?
We smart, yeah.
And Panda, because I was checking your Twitter, and a while ago you tweeted that it was your goal to make it back to pro rank.
Mm-hmm.
So how are we doing in that department?
I mean, it's not really I wanted to get back, but it wasn't really a goal because for those that don't know, I've played ladder like when I used to play a lot, like back in like open beta days. I guess I was a pretty accomplished player on ladder, so getting back to pro rank isn't really something difficult. You just have to put in the time and play the games, obviously. But yeah, like Freddie, I took a bit of a break with the move and everything in October, November, and then in December, once we were both here, I think we both played a lot, and I got back into pro ladder easily. But then I had the Christmas break, and I wasn't top 500, so I have to climb back up this season again, which is not ideal, but I'm not a player, so I don't really need to be in pro ladder and like grind out all these games. I can just take it more chill, just learn the meta. As long as I know the decks and I know what's happening, that's enough for me, I guess.
Oh yeah, definitely. And BJ, because I've heard there's been rumors that you are now a triple scenario aficionado.
Oh yeah, I mean, I try now. It all started out with triple siege, playing caretaker and renew in the scenario.
Wow.
And it actually won me a lot of games. And then I was with my buddy Drift playing, and we started creating these decks in every faction. So now I have five of the 6 factions covered with triple scenario.
Wow.
Yeah, because guys, if you are not aware, BJ has these short-lived obsessions with certain concepts. Back in the day, he tried to turn everything into a shoot deck. Now it's triple scenario everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta get fun out of certain strategies, right?
Oh yeah,
So
and
I'm a
when it comes to
content creator.
you are a content creator, and if you play exactly the same meta decks everyone else is playing, I guess your viewers would be not too happy about that.
I mean, they would just watch someone else that's better at the game, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. But when it comes to strategies and making your own decks, you guys live together. How does it affect your playstyle and the deck building process? Are you guys brainstorming a lot? Are you exchanging ideas, improving your decks?
We're mostly just copy and pasting the deck list, and that's it basically. And we talk about some things, and we're in call a lot with Game King. I think we formed kind of a bond the past year and like the past month especially. So we're on Discord calls a lot together, and then obviously we talk about different decks and what's broken and what's what to play and like what's the best for each faction, and brainstorm with him a lot as well, but not so much in person. We don't just go to the kitchen table and start thinking about what the best decks are. More like in Discord call basically.
Yeah. One thing
Yeah,
that
it's
was
kind of funny.
Yeah, go ahead, Freddy.
Yeah, we could just go downstairs, but Discord is easier. So yeah.
I think everyone is doing that. Just you don't need to walk upstairs to tell me about something. Just send me a message or on WhatsApp or Discord.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And what I was wondering about, because you guys said that you're gonna stay in Warsaw for a couple more months, so it is entirely possible that you're gonna still be living in Warsaw during the World Masters. So I was wondering how the fact that you guys are friends and living together is gonna affect your commentating Panda on Freddy's place.
It'll be interesting, but I think even before we moved in together, he was one of the players that I had the most contact and the most relationship with anyway. So if there was any bias, you could have seen it before. But I think even on some broadcasts, there's like a negative bias in a joking and teasing kind of way that Freddie hates. But yeah, I think it won't change too much. I mean, obviously, I'm going to be impartial and neutral as a caster. I think it's a pretty important thing to do when you're a broadcast talent. So on that front, I think everything will remain pretty much the same. Maybe a few more jokes here and there, but
just a few. But of course, Freddy is not hearing what you were saying on during the tournament. He's playing, he's focusing on the game, so it must be interesting. It's gonna be an interesting experience just playing, and then maybe I should watch and see what Panda was talking about me, was telling viewers about me.
A lot of times,
some nasty stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of times I say things when he's not actually playing, just as an offhand comment about him in the tournament and stuff. So he normally catches most of them, or someone tells him. So he always comes back to me and tells me like, "Yo, Panda, don't say that anymore."
And do you guys plan to create content together? Because Panda used to stream, and I remember that was a while ago. That was shortly before the Artifact release, where you said you're gonna divide your time between streaming Gwent and streaming Artifact. Do you have any plans to return to Gwent as a streamer, as a content creator?
That's a tough question. It kind of depends. Obviously, I'll be playing Gwent a lot, but there's also a lot of new games coming out soon that I want to try. I want to, see what kind of their like potential is in the card game. Scene in general, like Runeterra, for example. So I'm not too sure. I have to fix some issues with my PC setup still. One of my monitors didn't survive the move apparently, so I have to buy a new one. And the internet, we've had some issues, so I haven't really given it a good solid try to stream. Right now it seems it's kind of fixed, so I think in the next week or two, or maybe even like after the patches and the meta changes a bit when it gets more interesting for me, because I don't really need to play in January. I don't have to play the ladder. I don't have to be a top ranked player because that's not my role in Gwent, so I have more freedom in that regard. So I think there'll be definitely a higher chance at streams now that I'm living here, but no guarantees.
Yeah, and Freddy, because you said, again, on Twitter, that you're going to be playing quite a lot in the next couple of months. Are you also going to stream? Because I think that some people were worried that you are now a full-time private investigator rather than a player.
I mean, I'm doing a lot of investigative work. No, but no, we'll see. It kind of is easier not to stream. Especially when you're trying to climb the ladder and prepare for tournaments. Like, not so much now, but particularly when it gets closer to the World Masters, I don't really want to, be playing all the time and giving away strategies and decks and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm kind of hoping I can stream a bit this month and next month. Just to keep, I guess, a tie to the community and all the people who've watched me for a while, but I don't really see myself doing streaming like long term in the same way that I used to, just because like the hours that I was spending on it wasn't really like worth it financially, and I just figure I've kind of lost my mojo a little bit in that regard. But yeah, we'll be doing the occasional stream if the internet is hopefully working as it should be, and maybe I'll join Panda on his, or he can come to mine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and that'll be good.
it will be nice because when I was thinking about you guys streaming together and just playing together on stream, it instantly reminded me of Life Coach and Super JJ doing that. And I was telling everyone, imagine you are a random player and you queued into Life Coach playing together with Super JJ. You are in trouble, boy.
Oof. Yeah.
And BJ, what about you? What about your stream? Because I think that your hours have decreased significantly the last couple of months.
Yeah. Exactly. Like as I mentioned before, I got a full-time job now. I had to be busy with all my studies, so I did not stream the entire month of November, and I only did maybe a couple streams during December. So I'm trying to stream a little bit more now, at least so I can stream part time. But the thing is, when you work all day and you come home, then personally I usually feel very tired. So I don't have the energy to stream anymore. But I will try to stream at least a couple times a week now. And yeah, like what Freddie said as well. Like I just spent way too much time on Twitch back in the day.
I think we lost Panda.
We lost
Momentarily.
Panda.
We lost Panda, the new meme.
I'm back.
What happened,
It's
Panda?
always- The internet, I don't know. I just all of a sudden, boom, like black screen.
Yeah, Panda was just like, I'm tired of this BJ bullshit. I'm out of here.
This is the internet stuff we're talking about. We have to make some very threatening calls tomorrow and try and figure this out.
But yeah, to wrap up my story, I just it's not worth the time to spend so much time on Twitch anymore. There are lots of other things to do. But I love streaming, so I try to do it because it's nice to interact with the Twitch chat, having some fun, getting some entertainment value, so you can go get those clips for the deadline show.
Oh yeah,
And,
the last one was pretty spicy, and you got punished. It was perfect. I'm not sure if Panda and Freddy are actually aware of what happened.
Nope.
So BJ played against a guy whose name was Observe a Master in Action, or something like that, and he was like, Master in Action, more like pleb in action. And then the guy made like a big 30-something point play and completely punished BJ.
I did not saw that coming. But yeah.
But yeah, streaming is always tough when you have the option to work, because obviously working even a part-time job is more financially responsible than streaming.
Yes.
And when it comes to that, sometimes you get the offer to do a sponsor stream. And I think Freddy can tell us a little bit more about that. He's been playing Teppen. And there's no shame in doing sponsor content whatsoever. I think everyone understands that as a streamer, you are looking for any income wherever you can. So, you've been playing Teppen. Did you actually like it? Like, do you plan to play the game more, or do you plan to try out some other games in the meantime, or are you just gonna focus solely on Gwent for the time being?
Teppen's actually it's up there right now. It's if it's not Gwent, I'm playing Teppen. So, and they announced sort of a World Masters type tour thing, which there's not been prize pools and stuff confirmed yet, but you can qualify by climbing high on the ladder every month. So I'll be playing that still, and I think there's even going to be a tournament that I'm in this month, so I'll stream that. But Teppen's a lot of fun. Like, my sponsorship with it's ended now, so I don't have to stream it anymore. But the game is actually, like, I think it's the best mobile-only game I've ever played for sure, and it's definitely up there in terms of card games that I've played. I recommend it. If you want a mobile-only thing to play, it's good.
Yeah, and Panda, you are going to explore a little bit more of Runeterra. That's what you said before the show.
Yeah, I played the two beta phases, and I thought it was pretty interesting. And obviously, when you're working and you're specializing in the strategy card game area of esports, it's kind of limited in its scope and its potential and its opportunities that you have. And Runeterra is maybe the game other than Artifact, but we all know how that ended. That has the most potential in terms of maybe not Twitch numbers and prize money and all this, but just having Riot as a parent company and a backer is already a huge guarantee. So I'm interested to see where that goes. If it goes very competitive, if it stays more casual, but I'll definitely be exploring it. And I played some Tevin as well with Freddy, and I think GameKing as well played quite a bit. So yeah, I think Tevin's also a very good game. Has its own different thing altogether, but it's really fun. And for a mobile game that you play for a little bit every day, it's really fun.
And how do you divide your time between Gwent and other games? Are you just playing whatever you feel like playing, or do you keep in mind that, hey, I'm a caster or a professional player, I need to play this game?
I think each person knows, I know as a caster how, when I was not playing Gwent super regularly, this past year, basically, because the events were more spaced out, and the whole thing was kind of not much inertia with it, basically. I would just play before the events, and obviously Gwent hasn't changed that much. I've played all of Homecoming, I played all the metas basically, so I would just learn the meta and learn the best decks and understand all the strategies, and that would be kind of what I needed to do for tournaments. Now I'll be playing a bit more regularly, but still, I don't see myself returning to the point where I was playing Gwent 8 hours a day, every day, top of the ladder, and consistently grinding up to those top spots, because I don't need to. And at the end of the day, I enjoy Gwent, but not in the way I used to. And I like having time to explore, other games like indie games and RPGs and different stuff with the time I have.
I can totally get you when you say that. I've been playing so much Gwent that I had no time to finish Red Dead Redemption 2, and then finally I decided to finish that game. It's a really cool game. Happy that I spent my time on that game to finish it. So yeah, I can totally get your point there.
Oh yeah, I think that's to a certain degree everyone can somewhat understand what Panda is talking about.
Yeah, I think even McBeard started playing some RPGs.
Oh, that's what he said he was gonna do. I'm not sure if that's actually happening.
I mean, he did stream what's the God of War.
Oh, it's a pretty good game.
Yeah, he did stream that for a while. So, but I guess now is the time to get invested into Gwent again with Season 2.
Yeah, that's always the problem that I have, because other than Gwent, I'm a huge Path of Exile fan. So whenever a Gwent expansion and PoE expansion kind of line up, I have a problem because I have to decide what I'm gonna play, and my viewership is Gwent based, and then I have to stream Gwent. But sometimes I just catch myself streaming Gwent and thinking absolutely about nothing else but PoE.
Yeah, definitely for me, I found that not feeling like I have to stream, and in fact just not streaming at all really for a month or two, just kind of opens up. Yeah, it's a lot more fun to play whatever you feel like, and if you play Gwent, then it's a more enjoyable experience, and you feel like you're doing it because you want to, rather than just because you feel like you owe your audience something, or you want to keep the money coming in from Twitch or whatever the reason might be.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot of good games out there. So,
but in the end, this is a Gwent podcast. We are supposed to talk about Gwent. So I think with that being said, we can move to the next segment, which is what's happening in Gwent. And surprisingly, despite the lack of patch, a lot is happening. We didn't really have the chance to talk about the expansion. Actually, the last episode of our show, we were kind of surprised by the fact that there is an expansion. We thought it's going to be pretty slow and boring episode where we just discuss things among ourselves, and then all of a sudden we get an expansion. So yeah, guys, your opinion on how CDPR handled Merchants of Eve, or on how it was released without any kind of marketing, without any kind of review campaign. That these are things we were used to, and all of a sudden you just wake up, oh, there's an expansion. Your take.
Go ahead, Freddie.
Yeah, when I first saw it release, I thought I'm pretty sure they made some kind of slight mistake on the timings or something, right? I seem to recall that being the case, but yeah, I don't know how big of an effect actually doing the pre-marketing and all the card reveals and stuff has. I think a lot of people quite enjoy just jumping in and finding all these new cards, and actually gives a bit more time to sort of do some experimentation yourself, rather than just looking at all the different videos on cards and new cards. let's talk about how good they are from, streamers and YouTubers and whatnot. So I don't, dislike necessarily. I know a lot of the, Gwent partners are probably not too happy that they didn't get to reveal stuff, because it's always nice to be able to do that on Twitter or Twitch, and yeah, understandably. But yeah, I think it was an okay release after all, even with the slight hiccup at the start.
Yeah, I think it kind of aligned with at least me coming back to playing, like grinding seriously and getting back into pro rank and like learning all the meta decks. So it was a fresh experience to have a surprise expansion and new cards to deal with to make that more enjoyable, I think. So it was fun. I think also the expansion, the cards they added, and the different things they added were very new, with scenarios and all this different stuff. So it made it like, yeah, fun to try and solve the meta quickly and kind of play the better decks. I know we were playing like some elves Radea stuff early on. That's what I used to climb to pro rank. So it was a fun deck.
Yeah.
Yeah. BJ, your take on how it was released, because obviously you are also a Gwent partner. You already revealed your card in the previous expansion, so I doubt you'd get the chance this time. But I can imagine a lot of partners being at the least slightly upset about the fact that other partners got to release a couple of cards in the previous expansions, and they have to wait at least 3-4 more months.
I mean, exactly. Like, as a Gwent partner, you have that privilege, right? To play in closed beta, not closed
PDR,
closed PDR, and to get those reveal a card for the campaign. So those things were not there, and they just decided to release the expansion without any notice. And for Gwent partner, I think that's really unfortunate, because you kind of want to, want to give feedback on the new cards, or like with the card that you can reveal, you get maybe some new couple of new viewers, to your stream or to your YouTube channel. So,
yeah, you would like to just participate in the campaign. You'd like to be part of it.
Yeah, you want to be more part of it. Like, otherwise, being a Gwent partner has no meaning anymore.
Yeah, I think you are writing an article on that as well.
Yeah, I'm actually working on an article to put out there for people to read, and hopefully CD Projekt Red will read it too, so they can use my feedback and my suggestions for 2020.
Yeah, because I was. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Because otherwise, if you are a Gwent partner, you're just a Gwent partner for the cosmetics. So yeah, I hope I can make a statement with it.
Yeah, definitely the lack of PTR was also a bit. I know a lot of the complaints that people have now are, in terms of balance of a couple of key cards, right? Which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Oh,
but,
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, maybe that could have been avoided with the PTR kind of thing that they were doing beforehand, for most, if not all, of the expansions.
Yeah.
So a little bit weird to at least not see that, and maybe have the surprise factor, but without the card reveals, but still with a PTR would have been kind of nice, maybe.
Yeah.
At the very least, but yeah.
Yeah, I was personally quite shocked, because I remember that day. I just started streaming, and I was to play some arena, and then at some point somebody told me, "Do you know that there are plenty of new cards leaked on Reddit?" And I was like, "What?" So instead of playing the game, I started reviewing the leaked cards, and then an hour later, somebody told me, "Oh, the new expansion just came out." What? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Similar experience here.
Shocked a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that surprise is also something that's quite nice, right? Like, if it comes out of the blue, you're kind of like, okay, I'll actually try it and jump
It's
in.
like guerrilla marketing.
Yeah, people are gonna talk about, hey, did you heard about the new expansion? New expansion for Gwent? Wait, what? Huh? And then people start talking about it in Discord, Twitter. Yeah, so I guess that's something you can achieve with it.
Yeah, I guess. But other than the expansion, we are now at the very beginning of the new season, the season of the Wolf. And the first major complaint about the season is that there's no patch.
Yeah.
Guys, your take. How do you feel about the game not being patched after an expansion without a PDR?
Yeah, I think some things are clearly a bit overtuned, and just a few cards could be changed, and it would make things maybe a a lot smoother, but I guess it was like the holidays in Poland. There's also like very long holidays, and then they just didn't want to touch the game or patch it, this month. But I still think like at least a few cards could have been changed very quickly, and especially now without console really being a thing, it makes patching and pushing through updates a lot easier. I think with PC, it's much more streamlined, and they have total control over the process. So I think we could have seen at least a few changes. I think probably the meta will still develop a bit, and some new strategies and new cards will counter certain things that are being very oppressive, but things like Rodea and things like maybe scenarios being doomed with Caretaker, certain interactions could probably change, and a few more cards that were added in the expansion. So a bit disappointing, but I think it's not as bad as people make it seem. It's not the worst meta we've seen in Gwent, and I think it's still pretty competitive, and most factions have viable strategies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and maybe over this month, as Panda said, stuff will change a bit. Like I know everyone was playing Matter last month, at the beginning of the straight after the release, and everyone was saying the card was super, super, OP. And it's a good card, but I don't see it nearly as much now, like, maybe half the time sort of thing. So, potentially we could see that with Rodea decks, for example. They might, come down a bit in popularity if people find other things, to test out. But it is kind of a shame that Rodea is the like the focal point of the meta, because as a card, it kind of just is promoting the single copy card archetypes, right? And those are kind of, in my opinion, not the most fun, and not super diverse in terms of how they play all those decks. So, but there's other stuff that's good, like monsters and Northern Realms and whatnot. So, um, there's good and bad, I guess.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
not the worst meta we've had.
I can
But
agree with
BJ, I would like to hear your opinion on the matter as well.
I mean, on the meta or about the balance patch?
The lack of any
yeah,
any balance patch.
Yeah, exactly. Like I feel like it's a missed opportunity if you don't balance anything. And they used to say like if a card is being played a lot, they will change it. And I don't know. I did not see the stats, but I believe Rodea was being played a lot. So maybe they should have slightly nerfed it, maybe in provisions, because it is a neutral after all. It's not a faction card. And maybe they could have given some buffs or some nerfs to some other cards, just slight ones, at least do something. Because I do think it's a missed opportunity, but I feel like they wanted to play it safe and not change anything because it's season 2, competitive season. Maybe they opted to do that. There was also holidays. Maybe they have not even thought of patching anything because it was holidays. So I don't know.
Yeah, one thing that we have to remember is that before Christmas, Rodea was not that popular. I think Rodea, as Freddy put it, the focal point of the meta, started to appear somewhere between Christmas and New Year's. So obviously, when CDPR were taking their vacation break, they were on vacation and they came back last Tuesday, and the patch dropped, or the new season dropped last Wednesday. So they effectively had a day to think about it. So if you keep that in mind, I think they had to look at their data, at how many people are playing, what is the player retention, what people are playing, and based on that, they decided they can afford waiting another month with any balance changes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that was definitely part of it. I mean, when I was playing all my games basically and together pro rank and kind of stay there, it was like the first 2 weeks of the patch, because then over Christmas break I didn't really play that much. And there was definitely a different meta between those first 2 weeks, and like Call of Harmony Square deck wasn't really a thing. It was mostly just Mystic Echo, or like the elf variant that wasn't Call of Harmony. It was just normal with like one me and Freddy were playing, like just with like the Brewer leader. And NR wasn't necessarily always Rodea. It was just a normal version with just siege engines and the siege thing as well. Monsters wasn't really a thing.
Yeah.
And then like the Arrakis Queen deck came after, which I think is probably one of the stronger, maybe kind of memey, but pretty strong monster decks that came like after the break basically. So when I came back from break, there was like a lot of new decks that I hadn't been playing or seeing before. So already it was a big shift at that point. And I think that might be what happened to like CDPR was on holiday. They came back, and then there was like new developments in the meta, and they're like, okay, we'll just wait and see, and then just patch next month.
Yeah, that was exactly my experience because I left for a week. Oh, and the first Christmas day, the meta was still not established. And then I got back home after a week, and all of a sudden there was a new meta snapshot released by both Team Artusa and TLG. And I had a look at the decks and I was like, what? What are these decks? Where did they come from? I haven't seen them. So I can imagine that was exactly how CDPR felt when they got back to their office, and they were just surprised that meta had taken this specific turn.
Mm-hmm.
But have you guys seen the Ocean mods video on the Mother?
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
I skimmed over it a bit. I think. I like the reaction part of like reacting to what other people in the community were doing. I think that was a pretty cool concept. And there was a lot of reactions to the decision. Obviously, with the season 2 starting now, there's a lot on the line for a lot of pro players. And not having a balance patch could maybe, if there's a balance patch, it makes it very new. So maybe people that prepare together and are good at building decks and good at solving metas have like an upper an advantage basically. But in this case, with no balance patch, a lot of people were very disappointed. I know Alessio and DeMorcus tweeted a few things, and Maligian, kind of the usual suspects. But seeing a reaction to that was interesting. I think something that's not really done that often. So that was cool. I think at least.
Oh yeah, the part that I liked was he picked a Reddit comment, and in that Reddit comment somebody said, "Oh yeah, like you complain about Radea, but we are talking about 6-7 decks that include Radea and that are being playable. So that's the definition of diversity." And with his points that he made during the video, Oceanmat actually managed to change the guy's views, because in the comments of the same video he said, "Okay, you convinced me. You're right. Like these decks, these are different decks, but they feel very, very samey, very mid-rangey. Basically, you play Radea, you play Mada, maybe Morale, and 22 value cards of your choice, and you have a deck."
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the really interesting thing with Radea as well, which I'm not sure it's ever been the case with another kind of really prevalent card archetype, is the existence of Radea decks actually increases the incentive to play Radea decks, because you have like all of these different mechanics that recycle or reuse the opponent's Radea, like in Nilfgaard and Northern Realms, or with the Hengaith sword, right? So if people are playing it, then more people want to play it, and then it's like a cycle, and the card is just like wildly, seen everywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit weird that it's neutral and so strong, right? Maybe should have been toned down a little bit.
And yeah,
the fact that it's
go ahead.
The fact that it makes like a singleton archetype makes it so there's even less synergy than there already is in Homecoming between bronzes, and it makes, that's why it feels so mid-rangey, because you're just playing for points, not really any like core synergies. Maybe for example, like this monsters deck with the Arrakis Queen and the Insectoid buffing, like that's a very different deck, and it doesn't play Radea. It plays an archetype basically. But now with Gwent, and if they start pushing the singleton archetype more and more with other cards that support it, and every new expansion there's going to be more good bronzes being added, so it makes it even easier to have one of each, because they're all going to be like 1.5 or 2 points above value regularly for a bronze. So that even makes it even worse. I think the singleton archetype should kind of be a meme, kind of like the way Shoop was, and even Shoop could be seen kind of as problematic in some cases, but with Radea now it's even worse almost, I think.
Yeah, the fun thing with Radea is like it's so strong that you don't even play Shoop in a Radea deck. Like,
exactly. Exactly.
I started I started playing both, but then people start saying, "No, man, it's not worth it anymore. Shoop is just 12 or 13, and don't play it." And then I was like, okay.
Yeah. Plus, when you are playing Shoop, there is always that uncertainty of what you're gonna get.
Yes,
there is some RNG involved. Whereas when you are playing Radea, you always get what you want, and you can make synergies based on that.
Yeah, but it's only when you play it on the melee, bro.
And the fact it's a proactive play as well, and you can play it on an empty board, you don't need any synergies to play it or to fulfill its value, makes it even worse. It's like a 2 point over its value cost, and normally that comes with a drawback. You have to have a certain board setup, you have to have a certain synergy working, you have to have, but in this case, it's literally proactive, way above the point value, and opens up much more like other synergies like Ansace and the leader stuff and scenarios. So it is an offender in every case of why a card is overpowered, and that's why I think we're seeing it in so many decks and why it's so prevalent. Like, it's not the card itself, but just everything else that it revolves around it, basically.
Yeah, because you can also decide whenever you want to use the stratagem. You don't have to play the
there's no
stratagem
counter
the
to the
same turn.
strategic.
Yeah, exactly.
So you can use the stratagem with another card in your hand. And it's interesting, but that's why it makes it really good.
Yeah, it's a really cool card design. Like, I kind of just wish it didn't have the singleton, aspect to it, and that, even then it would be auto include, right? But at least the decks then wouldn't be just one copy bronzes, and every deck would have that really OP card, but then they'd at least be playing for synergy as well, maybe. But obviously, just make her weaker as well would be ideal,
Yeah.
right?
Or maybe if you could remove it, the stratagem with something.
Yeah.
That would even
Because
be
the
an
way
option.
this card works, it could as well be renamed to Radea Impending Doom. Because you often see that people play it as their opening round 3, and you know that, if you are playing against Scrato, you know that the scenario is coming. If you are playing NR, you know that Ansace is coming. And Ansace with Radea is how many points? Basically,
a lot of points,
7
yeah.
plus 14 removal.
Yeah.
So he's 21.
Unconditional 21 for how much?
10? 10.
Yeah. One other thing about Radea is, like, I kind of like the aspect of it, especially with the Elven, the Scoia'tael decks, and the scenario. Like, it's really interesting because she makes the scenario, the artifact that you play, a lot safer, right? You don't really get artifact removal if you're playing that version. And the reason that it's safe is because the stratagem is uninteractive. So I guess it kind of just highlights an issue with the whole artifact removal situation that has been existing for a long time, which is that if you have these high provision artifacts that are so binary in whether they get you a lot of value or not, depending on the opponent having artifact removal or not, just ends up deciding a lot of games. And yeah, I find it kind of interesting that she creates this problem of lack of interactivity, but she is at the same time solving that kind of same problem, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah, when
So,
it comes to the interactivity, we have the scenarios, and originally I was a huge fan of the scenarios. I was looking at those cards and I thought they're amazing. But then we started getting more and more decks that can cycle through a scenario in one turn, which makes them uninteractive. And we've also seen decks that run Caretaker so that you can replay your scenario. Your thoughts on the overall idea of scenarios and how they are being played right now?
I think they're good. They're a nice addition to Gwent. I think it was a very unique thing, and I liked the idea overall. But the execution, I think now with having a lot of leaders that can play cards in a turn and having the combo potential is a bit too dangerous, especially with scenarios are going to highlight this, I think, in the next few months probably. But overall, I think the idea of some leaders playing, points and some of them, if you look at it now, the quite limited amount of points, and then some leaders just playing cards straight up, makes it very dangerous because you can do some pretty crazy things. Even with like defenders as well, like Nilfgaard, I know I played a deck before with like poison stuff, that you could make a certain play that makes the opponent unable to interact, and then he's behind on the removals for every turn because of that. And it allows some pretty crazy combos that you just can't stop at all. So I think scenarios and Radea and stuff like that are going to be a problem, but leaders that can play cards going forward are going to become a problem as well, because they're just going to be really good value all the time, like Mystic Echo as well, and pretty much everything that can combo different cards in one single turn, because it doesn't allow a window for the opponent to react.
Oh yeah, we are definitely going to talk about the leaders and the lack of changes in that department. But yeah, Freddy, scenarios. How do you like them? And
yeah. Yeah, same as Panda. I think they're a cool mechanic. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like Gwent takes ideas from other card games, like particularly Magic, for example, and tries to sort of just throw them into the Gwent formula. Like we had this a bit with Create, and these scenarios are kind of like sagas in Magic, right? I think there was also another mechanic that I'm forgetting that. I guess the fee and the whole profit and stuff from from Syndicate is taken from Energy or something that was a failed sort of Magic concept. But in this case, I think it works quite well. I think there's a bit of an issue in terms of them being artifacts and the artifact removal. Yeah, as I already mentioned, that sort of debate on whether, maybe artifacts should not be removable, but then you have to balance them, and maybe then they're still very oppressive and horrible. So it's quite tricky. Like maybe the way to do it is just say, okay, scenarios are kind of like stratagems, and they can't be actually interacted with at all, but you'd have to tone them down a lot, or increase the conditions with which they can be met. Something like that. There's not really like an easy solution for scenarios without kind of changing artifacts in general. I think either you like make them way too bad by like increasing the provisions a lot, or um, you know, or way too good still and very abusable with these combos and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think that a very popular suggestion was to make them somewhat limited, 1 chapter per turn. But then you have an
Yeah, I was
artifact
thinking
that's
that too.
14 provisions or 12 provisions. That's a lot. That can be removed. So imagine putting that down and then getting it removed by a 4 provision bronze neutral. So you are missing out on a lot of value.
Risk, right? It's your own risk to play that card. In that
But then the card becomes high risk, low reward.
Also, the fact that it sits at the like 14, 13 provision range makes it high risk, high reward. If it would sit at a lower range and had a lower total point value overall, I think that would make it much healthier, because right now you play it, doesn't get removed, great. Just got 18, 19 points for 14, great value, fantastic. It gets removed, you're fucked. You lost the game. Like the game's over basically, because Gwent at a high level is very few points difference. So if it sits at a 9, 8 to 10 provision range and obviously an equal point value overall, it makes it much healthier, because if it gets removed, it's fine, but it's not the end of the world. And if it stays on the board, it's a good play still, but it's not going to win you the game like automatically. So I think the less binary gaps there are in like provisions and points, and those kind of interactions, at least, it's going to be a healthier state overall for Gwent, I think.
Another problem with their high provision cost is basically they made Mada auto-include. Because you are always going to get the scenario.
No, I mean, in Squirtle you have Oak, which is 1 provision more than the scenario, but in most cases, Mata will draw you the scenario. Yeah.
Yeah, every deck has a way to get their scenario if they're playing it right.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like that's maybe more an issue with the scenario rather than matter necessarily, right? Like as Panda was saying, if you maybe just decrease the provisions that it costs and the points it could generate, then that would kind of.
Yeah, I really like that suggestion.
Yeah, me too.
I think it just makes sense. I mean, and if you look at it, I think most high provision cards, like 13, 14 provision cards, should be situational and should be cards that you have to find the right boards here for them to get that value. And I mean, scenarios, okay, sure, you have to meet the scenario thing, but I mean, I think no one's stupid enough to not put in, I don't know, Death Wish in their deck, or not put in, Aristocrats when you have to complete that. So like Igni, for example, is a great card. You can get a really high point value and it costs a lot, but you have to find the right synergy. You have to kind of play to get those points. Whereas cards like the scenarios and even, I don't know, I think a lot of NR top end cards are very easy to find a lot of value in them, like Philippa and Palabor. I think those cards are also problematic. I think the very high end provision cards should have a big element of finding the right board state for it, not just like play it and you're good to go. Like Rodea as well.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned NR gold, and I think that the reward golds, Falibor, Philippa, Anseis, they somewhat contribute to the fact that Gwent feels a little bit more mid-range than before.
At least for Northern Realms, yeah.
Yeah, one thing I'll also say about the whole matter and being able to find the scenarios, like I think it's actually maybe a good thing that these things exist. Like if matter didn't exist, or if you couldn't, Call of Harmony out your scenario, then I feel like a lot more games would actually be decided by whether or not you drew your scenario. And even now, like a fair amount of games are, did you get your Rodea or your tutor into Rodea, and maybe you just lost because you didn't, kind of thing. especially when you're playing these sort of low synergy decks with 1 copy bronzes, then the top end of the deck is very important to draw, and you're just throwing away the bronzes kind of as filler, and you really don't want to draw those in round 3 or whatever. So in some way, the consistency is actually helping with that problem, I think, in terms of the balancing of these kind of big cards that we've been talking about.
Yeah, consistency is one thing, but the question is also, do we want to have neutrals that are basically auto-include?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in the past, we haven't. Unicorns and Caranex were nerfed very hard along with damage. And
the Witcher Trio was nerfed quite significantly. I
think...
still remember those days, early Homecoming. Ugh, the neutral meta.
Witcher deck. Play a 4-point card that buffs all your Witchers. Great tempo.
We actually see the Witcher's deck resurface in the seasonal mode.
Seasonal mode now, which is kind of cool though.
Yeah.
I've not played it yet, but I want to try it.
I think another card that's somewhat problematic, and it's not played in every deck, but in some decks, is Morale.
I mean, is it problematic?
He is basically cheaper and better Gaunter Odim.
I mean, most people didn't even know Gaunter Odim was in the game right now, so that's also a thing.
I mean, he is 9 and deploy poison or a poison. That could be a lot of points.
Yeah, I think
definitely power creep, right? An example of that.
Yeah.
He makes certain archetypes better, which is nice, like poison NG.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I feel like he's the kind of neutral card that's good for the game because it supports a lot of factions and a lot of archetypes without being, auto include. It's an option, but not necessarily overpowered. Purify.
You can answer it and purify it. Yeah, exactly. Like, but it's nice that you have a card like that can be is diverse around certain factions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, personally, I'm just not too sure about 5 power, 9 provisions. I think they could change some things when it comes to its value and cost.
Yeah, more so I just like to see sort of some of the really unplayable cards get changed, maybe. I feel that might be a healthier way to address it, bring Gorta down in provisions or just change him, or maybe even change some stuff like Geralt and Leo kind of stuff, which aren't really seeing play because poison just overshadows them a bit. I think generally buffing is kind of more fun than nerfing because if you just nerf the good stuff, then a lot of the bad stuff is still not going to be playable, and you just get sort of middling, things rather than having a lot more options and a lot more diversity in what you can play if you're able to successfully buff things.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've heard quite a lot. The lack of consistency when it comes to design and balance. For instance, okay, it was a neutral combo. The ponies got nerfed really hard, as you just said. And then we get Echo and Murlega in Squirtle that do exactly the same thing. And that are insane value for their provision cost. And you just mentioned, Geralt and Leo getting nerfed, and then we get Poison that doesn't really need any kind of condition.
Yeah, it's like there is a replacement for everything that gets nerfed. If there will be a replacement in the future, there will be a replacement for some cards, and
I think Gwent could definitely use like a spring cleaning of sorts, like once a year. I think devs should really look at cards that aren't being played at all, and just, I'm not saying put in a ton of dev time into reworking and all this, but just, hey, this card isn't played at all. Maybe if we lower provision point by 1 for bronzes, all of a sudden it's somewhat viable at least, and just do very tiny balance patches where you just change points of provision by 1 or 2 points and see what happens. And maybe it won't make Gaunter Odim meta if you make it 10 provisions, but in some decks, if there's eventually, some kind of doomed synergy, it'll see play. And I think every year they could do that. Just look at all the cards, take a second to just make some common sense decisions and say, okay, this is never going to see play. Let's give it 1 more point. And then maybe it doesn't see play either, but it's slowly improving towards making a much more widespread use of all the cards, basically.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, go ahead, BJ.
That's why I said it's like a missed opportunity to not. I mean, it doesn't have to be a balance patch, but then patch at least some cards so they could be played. That's why I said it's a missed opportunity to not do anything at all. Because there's so many cards and so many cards that are not being played out, so it would be nice.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know
because
from the-
not
Trust.
too long ago we had the rework campaign, right?
Yeah, I
They
mean,
announced it
sure.
in July, I think, and they said we're gonna rework bronzes to be the same level as I think Syndicate and Skellige. Of course, the reference point doesn't make any sense anymore because the bronze value has changed significantly in the past couple of months. But even today, people were asking me, where are the reworks? Like, have you heard anything? Are there more reworks coming? Because I feel like the campaign is already over without there being any kind of announcement. Like, we don't know if they are still working on bronzes of other factions, if there are still some reworks happening. There is absolutely no communication in that department.
Yeah, I'd say probably not likely. But in terms of like balancing and bringing cards up in power level or even nerfs, I think the dev, like, don't quote me on this, but I would imagine their stance on it is sort of they don't feel like some cards are always going to be weaker than others. It's very hard to balance everything, and of course there's a difficulty there, right, in terms of getting everything right. But yeah, definitely it would be good to have some changes of some kind, right? And going back to the point about the lack of balance patch, I guess that's why people are a bit disappointed. It's difficult to see like a Gaunter at 12p or whatever he is with morale in the game, and then no patch this month.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that we only briefly talked about, and that's a completely new addition to the game, is Stratagems. And of course, there is the problem with Ordea, but how do you feel about Stratagems overall? Do you think it's a good addition to the game to get, the kind of tactical advantage, but that's more synergized with what you're playing?
Yeah, I think it was really good. I mean, it makes it a bit more variety. It lets you play into certain synergies and archetypes kind of a bit more, like elves, for example, with the Squidhole one. Some of them are clearly weaker than others and not very playable, so maybe look into that. But
yeah,
overall, I think there's a few that make sense in certain decks, and I think it was very solid general improvement to Gwent's core gameplay.
Yeah, I really like it. I think it also adds a lot to the faction identity, which was sometimes lacking. Like now, if you're a Scoia'tael deck, oh, you have some elves to, start the game with, and your Nilfgaard, you can control them a bit more, kind of thing. So that's really cool. Like I even kind of would have liked to see a way for it to be implemented so that not only the blue coin player would get it, and I'm not sure if this is a complaint that new players would have, but I imagine it would be a little bit unintuitive and weird to sort of have this distinct advantage on blue coin, or what would be perceived as an advantage as the blue coin player. Particularly when it synergizes like quite heavily with your deck potentially, in the case of elves or whatever it might be. So yeah, there's probably no way to make it so both players can kind of benefit from that decision that they make in the deck builder, but it'd be kind of cool if there was, I think.
Yeah, I mean, maybe after like 5 turns or something, as the red coin player, you can unlock the stratagem. Maybe something like that even could be fun, because that adds also a lot of strategy.
Yeah, it's very difficult to balance, right? Like, to be honest, I'm not even sure which is better right now, red or blue coin, and probably it depends what deck you're playing and stuff like that. And if you change, the formula there, you risk running into balance problems with the coin flip. But yeah, I mean, there's maybe even ideas of like, the player who, goes second has the stratagem in round 2 or something like that. But I don't know if you want to go down. There's a lot of things you'd have to think about with that, right? And whether that would work out. And I think probably it's too difficult to really implement in a balanced way.
Yeah,
well, the problem is still that stratagems are uninteractive. So if you give both players the way an opportunity to play them, then it's gonna create more problems than we already have. But if there was a way to interact with them, or at least with those that you get as a player on the red coin or in any other scenario, then maybe you could do something like, I don't know, discard a gold card in your deck and create a scenario or create a stratagem, something like that, where you have to sacrifice a card in your deck and to get the stratagem to create some more synergy. That could be nice. But then again, if it's not interactive, that would cause a lot of problems.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe give Bone Beaver, like when you played on melee, you destroy an artifact. When you played on range, you destroy a stratagem. Like, but then
I think it just makes it very sloppy, though. The wordings and the
Exactly.
for a new player, like I think it's an interesting idea to explore, but it makes things so complicated from a new player perspective and from like a beginner perspective that I think it's not worth the possible advantages it could give you. I think for the game
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah, to be honest, I think maybe the best thing, well, what I would like to see the most would be if stratagem was a distinct thing to actually the coin flip tactical advantage, and like if each player maybe had their stratagem the whole game, that could be quite interesting, and the person on blue coin could maybe have the Djinn ability or whatever, right? Just 5 phantom points, or like that was an idea floating around for a while. But like maybe each player could have access to that stratagem as kind of an additional ability with their leader. Or maybe go to 9 cards instead of 10 if you're worried about games being longer or whatever. But let's be real, probably not going to happen, right? So we're
Yeah,
kind of
because
dreaming over here.
yeah,
a
it
little.
would create a lot of balancing issues. Because if we are already complaining about combos like stratagem
That's
plus unsays, and let's say if you have a stratagem, then you can hold on until the end of the game. If it transfers through rounds, then that unsays would be big.
True. But yeah, on some level, I kind of like that the combo nature of this stuff. Like, to me at least, it feels like your deck actually plays more as a whole than maybe it did in past couple of months, sort of thing. You have to. You can bleed these kind of combo pieces out, right? Like if you know you're against elves, you maybe have to get the Redea from them so they can't combo their scenarios so that you can remove it. Or if you're worried about, I mean, Ansays is maybe just very strong no matter what the situation, but the fact that it is a 2-card combo makes it kind of interesting, and maybe if there's a way to make it even more cards that are required for that kind of combo, then that could be a cool thing. But they are
Yeah,
difficult to balance for sure.
personally, I think it was just a natural step for Gwent to add cards like that, because we had tactical advantage that felt very, I would say, meh. Like it doesn't really, you don't really get the feeling that it contributes to your deck. It's just 5 points.
Yeah, just
Right?
9 points.
And like if you're playing Novigrad, that lock could be worth way more than 5 points, and you could create some synergies with other cards that you already have in your deck. So
Yeah,
the word I was looking for was average. Like having tactical advantage felt average. Like you didn't often get the feeling that you are properly compensated for going first. But then we have this problem of many decks preferring to go first, because that allows you to be in full control of round 2. Because you want to win the round, you get the control of round 2, and you mostly get the last say, which can be absolutely huge in many games.
Yeah. I mean, that's true, but I do like the fact that they created these stratagems, because it also allows CD Projekt Red to implement more stratagems in the future, which have also synergy with other abilities. For example, the stratagem for Syndicate that has synergy with, for example, Horde 4. But yeah, it would be nice if they also have the possibility to have a stratagem that has maybe a synergy with bounty, for example, like put a bounty on your opponent. Like that's really cool, right? That you can implement more of these. But yeah,
there might
yeah,
there might eventually be like one stratagem for every kind of keyword or archetype, or for like every different faction. So you have like a way to personalize the deck and your strategy even more. And
also if they can add more cards that allow you to create stratagems, that would be quite nice. Although, of course, the balancing concerns. But yeah, maybe it's a case of need come with the stratagems so that you can add more in rather than because I think it's a very interesting mechanic, and if you're held back from pursuing it because of a couple of cards in the game, then you should probably just change those couple of cards, right? So yeah, maybe more stuff like Redea, but not as strong would be quite cool. You could play a Northern Realms deck, and you're setting up the board with a lot of shields for the future, and that kind of thing would be quite cool. And, but yeah, we'll see where they go with it.
And aren't stratagems like what artifacts should have been?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, exactly. That I just popped up in my head, but maybe Stratagems should have been, what artifacts should have been, because it's just one-time use, and you get a failure.
Yeah. Do you guys feel like the stratagems are unfair? Because, like, personally, I don't really
No,
get a sense of that whenever I play against them. It feels like, oh,
no, yeah,
not frustrating that I can't remove it. Kind
no,
of.
No.
Just,
exactly.
Especially not in the first round. And I think that the fact that these cards exist, together with scenarios, it opens up a lot of possibilities for future development of Gwent. Because I'm sure that over time we're gonna get more scenarios and more stratagems to synergize with your deck.
Mhm.
Because right now you can just, let me put it that way. Before, if you had a bad hand, you would often just dump cards that you didn't want to play anyway. And now you can make something out of nothing. Like, your hand is bad, but because of this stratagem, you can somewhat synergize them with what you already have on the board. So you can get decent value out of your bad cards. It feels like Mulligan Fodder just slowly starts to disappear as a concept.
Mhm.
Yeah, perhaps, yeah.
And with that being said, with more synergies being added to the game, favorite decks or cards, or maybe your specific plans for the season. Like, are there any concepts that you guys want to explore more, that you want to play around with?
I haven't played the insectoid monster deck, but I saw how it played and like how the combo works, and it was played against me a few games like at the end of this last season, and it looked interesting. So I want to give that a try. Yeah, I mean, I played most of the other decks already, most of the like meta decks, and typical siege stuff and all the elf stuff, and so I don't have a huge desire to play that, but there are a few new things that I haven't played that kind of popped up after break. So I'll probably give those a try. I think I won't take this season too seriously. I'm probably just do my placement matches for all the factions or most of them, and try the different decks that I haven't played yet, basically.
Speaking of monsters, I've heard that you are a huge fan of rats.
Rats. Oh,
He really hates rats.
That's a good
That
time.
was some, yeah. Okay, I'm back. Of wrath, did you say?
The rats.
Okay,
Rat
yeah.
decks.
Yeah.
The card that spawns rats on the
Um,
opponent's side of the board.
Yeah, once I started playing Gwent again in December patch after the expansion came out, I ran into that deck and I was very mad because outside of balance and outside of points and all this, not being able to play the game, I think, is an issue. If for 5 rounds you have to be discarding cards, like, that's fundamentally an issue that should not exist. So I know it's not the strongest deck. I know it's not, I lost, and after I know how the deck works, I can kind of see the signs and play around it in a way, but I still think it's an issue where if a player can't play any cards for 5 rounds, you're kind of breaking the game in a way.
Yeah.
So I think that should be looked at, maybe, those kind of strategies as well in the future. Very memey, but once that memey, moves into kind of the very frustrating territory for players, I think.
Yeah, like I ended up having to kill the rats with like a ballista, for example,
Yeah.
to be able to play my cards, and that was kind of weird to do it like that.
And the
Happen.
archer and square talk can also kill them, I think, on your side of the board, for
Yeah.
example. There's a few counters once you learn it, but obviously I was playing Elf Swarm, so Redea and like a ton of elves, so it was even worse. It was like obviously the worst possible case scenario, but overall I think certain things that, although they're memey, if they make it very frustrating, or in this case kind of unplayable, I think it should definitely be looked at, so it doesn't become like a thing in the future.
But on the other hand, situations like that can always happen, sometimes unintentionally. For example, yesterday I was playing against some Lippy Skellige deck, and the guy played the Ophiri Merchant. It's not a good card. It's a pretty bad card. It just swaps your top deck with his top deck. But what he got from me was Affen, and it bricked 3 cards in my hand. So he got 9 points on board, and he got another 9 or 10 points due to the fact that I bricked my hand.
Mm-hmm.
That's
so
crazy,
combos like that can happen, but in this case it's very intentional. They are setting it up.
I mean, Ophir Merchant is really interesting because I play the triple scenario deck. So when I play against NG and they play Yennefer Invocation on my scenario, I just get it back with the Ophir Merchant. So yeah, that's really big brain, but yeah, in most cases, of course, it's not really great.
Yeah, in most cases it's just memes, but it's a very good counter against Yennefer's Invocation.
Yeah,
Because Yennefer's Invocation is a very strong card. And probably a commonly hated card.
Yeah, I do think so. It's not as much as hated as the Heat Wave, I suppose.
Oh yeah, because she doesn't banish.
Yeah, so you have no way to counter it or to get it back, for example.
I think that in order to increase the level of hate this card is getting, we should make Yennefer to be able to remove stratagems. Then it's just through the roof. Then it's top. That is number one hated card in Gwent.
But then you top deck a 4-point card.
It's probably not worth to remove anyway. Because on average, like 4 or 5 points, let's say on average. So
yeah, but sometimes somebody plays for Daya and you're like, oh, phew, easy, unsafe broken.
Just take the Redea.
You could as well, yeah.
Yeah. But no, with all the Mimi stuff, yeah. I don't know if I have a problem with like the rat deck. As long as like a Mimi thing isn't too strong or too common. Like if you lose to something like 1 in 20 games, 50, 100 games, and
yeah,
it could be even kind of fun
very rare. It's like Cambi in beta. I love to lose to Cambi. I got Cambi in beta. I was like, that's impressive.
I loved playing Cambi, man.
And for a couple of weeks, in this meta, Cambi was actually quite popular. Or not popular. Yeah. He was playable.
I mean, the card is playable because of Mata, right?
Yeah.
So Mata
it's like a natural predator.
You play Cambi, it discards the best card of your opponent. And what I did I only put the Skirmisher is the only 4 proficient card in the deck. So Mata would get Skirmisher to my hand, and then I played Cambi. I discarded the Skirmisher, which would be played on the board, and I discarded the best card. Those unique moments are really cool where Cambi shines.
Yeah, I think based on this interaction, we just learned that the natural predator for an exotic dancer is just a gold cock. That's how it works, guys.
Yeah.
It's a very good play. Like we have to admit it.
Yeah.
I mean, it would help if discard wasn't,
Yeah, I missed this card.
Obviously.
And so
like if this card was, if it was anywhere near playable, then maybe Cambi would see play and it would be a natural counter to a Mata. But because it kind of isn't, sure you can. I mean, the combo you explained is a good one and it'll work in the meta, but it's still not going to be like super viable. I think worth including over like other just points.
Can we talk about how
Freddy? Yeah, what about you, Freddy?
What about me?
I mean, what are you like? What are you looking for?
Oh, what am I? Oh, well, I'm not sure I should say this because it might come up and be relevant in World Masters, but probably not. But I'm keeping my eye on Lippy every patch because in theory he gets stronger every time they add gold cards to Skellige. And yeah, that's all, I guess.
Yeah, maybe
no, I'm quite looking forward to playing the monster deck as well.
Yeah, maybe you should have a word with Knurgard.
Yeah, I mean, Lippy was really good at one point, right?
It was really cool, but that was with the moment where you could play Silver Witchers again.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Skellige is just the thing that's lacking. Like maybe if that faction becomes stronger, then Lippy could also do that. Like there's just not a lot of good golds in Skellige. And now the only kind of good one is the artifact, the scenario, right?
Yeah.
That's the main
and
draw.
It is considered problematic because they can cycle through it in one turn. And it doesn't really come with a downside, because if you want to do it in, let's say, monsters or Novigrad, like you would have to build your deck specifically to be able to cycle your scenario in one turn. In this case, play your best cards and resurrect them. Easy.
Oh wow! But what did you wanted to talk about, Freddy? You said.
I just wanted to say that I was a bit sad about Skellige in general.
Yeah.
Because it feels like the faction is just a bit messy. Like it got like a whole new sort of archetype added with like druids and alchemy. Yeah, and it feels like all of the damage and sort of bloodthirst
Yeah, the
stuff with
bloodbath.
crack and control and discard as well has all been left behind.
Yeah.
And
I think it's the one
it's
faction that's kind of like very like synergy based for all the, and it actually has archetypes and stuff, which is nice. But in this like mid range meta where you're just playing points, it just doesn't have the same independent point generation from different bronzes that don't have to synergize with each other, and the goals as well. They're all very synergetic goals, they're not very just like point slam goals. So I think that's why you see Scalia like not really being a thing, because it just doesn't have any of the other tools that every other faction has basically.
And it's interesting, right? Because the reason that they buffed druids and like alchemy in Skellige was because that was not being played. Now they did that, it's being played, and now the other archetypes within Skellige, you don't see them anymore, so they have to do it again, and then it's like a visual circle.
Yeah, it's a never-ending cycle in a way.
Yeah.
You buff something that gets played, so you have to nerf it, or you have to buff something else, and that gets played in turn, and you have to keep balancing your game. But Panda raised a very good point that synergized factions are not being played that much, and we can see that through the example of Syndicate. Like, it was the number one faction for months, or one of the best factions for months, and then all of a sudden it just disappears. You rarely see it.
Yeah.
Because of the synergies. It requires a lot of various cards to work together. You can't just point spam with Syndicate.
Yeah.
And
it was also like a novelty thing as well. When it came out, it was like a new faction, so a lot of people were playing it and trying it. And I think it's still a strong faction. It has a lot of very strong cards. Have very high reach, and you can do a lot of interesting things with it. I think it's a very complex faction as well. It's maybe part of it why it's not maybe played as often, I think. But even now, you see it's being played with like many just value, like some poisons being thrown in, but it's not really a poison deck. It's just the mutated hellhound, or that's what it's called, I think.
You mutated hounds.
I'm good with like inmates to card association, but not named. It's, I don't know, it's a weird problem for a caster especially.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just like a little like mix of everything, and it's not like super clear archetype anymore, I think. With like wild card as well, like the leader ability.
To be honest, I feel like the problem Syndicate has is actually just that it can't really abuse Redea or Scenario in any way. And pretty much every other deck that exists does that. So, Nilfgaard, they abuse Redea by taking the opponent's Redea with Bribery and Invocation. Northern Realms has Ansays, right? And Siege with Wombo combo. And Scoia'tael Elves, you get the idea. Skellige with the Druid Wombo combo. So, and monsters. I guess monsters is also different in that regard, but I think it would be strong if not for that kind of prevalence of these really powerful cards.
I mean, there's actually one card that has good synergy with Passiflora, which is Igor, the Hook. Because it's a fee unit. So you play Passiflora, you play Igor, it triggers the Passiflora, you get 5, maybe, I mean, you could get 5 coins from the Swindle, and then you could make a copy of the Peaches. That's what I've been actually playing last night, and it was interesting. But yeah. Overall, yeah, you can see what your point is.
And that's also the point that Chesy raised in his post in the feedback section of the partners Discord. Like he said, like everything feels kind of mid-rangey. Like the synergies are overshadowed by the point spam. I have to agree with that statement. But we've been talking a lot about factions, which factions are performing very well, which factions are underperforming. But if you were to mention like one issue that's somewhat hindering the game and the community, what would that be? Because if you go to Reddit, poison and bribery, that's like top of the list. People hate those things. But if you talk to competitive players, then all of a sudden you get a different set of things that they would change in the game. So what's your take? Like, if you had the ability to mention one issue that should be addressed by CDPR, what would that be?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be a bit of a weird one, and it might be a bit of a curveball. But when I was picking up the game again after my little break, the game felt just very tedious at times and very, very slow and drawn out, and even when there are like very important decisions to make, and games are won or lost by a few points often. So if you make a very small error in your maths, then that can cost you a game. Basically, what I'm saying is there's definitely a skill ceiling, and you have to play well and use the time to think. But on some level, it doesn't feel super rewarding, at least for me. And it was probably because I played a lot of Teppen, which is very fast-paced compared to Gwent, that kind of influenced that. But it just felt very slow, and the decisions I was making, you have a lot of time to think, and then the payoff is like very small. Like you maybe gain a point or two, which you don't really know if it will actually make a difference or not. And so, yeah, I'd like to see sort of the Blitz Gwent or Fast Gwent or whatever it was called, scenario seasonal. I'm talking about scenarios so much. Yeah, the seasonal mode come back in some form. Like I'd actually like to see some kind of secondary ladder for Gwent where it's just focused on like faster gameplay. Maybe not as fast as that seasonal mode, but just like some kind of yeah. But that's just kind of personal preference, and I've got used to playing sort of fast compared to what Gwent is, currently.
You were absolutely right, because on the other hand, they promised us logic decoupling, and we know that it's not necessarily working as we thought it would. Like you often still have to wait for all the animations to end and all the abilities to resolve before you can do something else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something the game struggled.
Sorry, but that's a very interesting take. I think most people would just talk about a certain card or a certain archetype. And you are talking more about the feeling of how it is to play Gwent and what hinders you the most. Yeah,
especially with Mata as well. When Mata was really common, like the games were even longer because both players played an extra 4 cards or whatever. 2 cards, or 4 cards, yeah. Yeah, 4 cards, which is quite a lot, right? Could increase the game by like 10 minutes maybe, which drags on you, especially if you're having to climb to Pro Ladder or climb on Pro Ladder if you have a goal there. And I know like probably a lot of people want to get to Pro Ladder, but then once they get there, they don't actually have enough time to actually stay on Pro Ladder. So that can probably make it quite hard to even try to be professional or compete at the high levels. So yeah. That's been one of my criticisms from like day one of Homecoming, that the game needs to be faster in some way, and maybe the way to do that is just to bring back Blitz Gwent and have that as a different kind of competitive format.
I think also weirdly enough, tying into what Freddie said, it's somehow related in a way. I think part of what makes it so much slower and feel like tedious and feel like you don't feel like that into playing Gwent like for very, very long hours is that there's a big issue with like a lot of the same decks being played, a lot of net decking, and then a lot of, I don't know, it seems like the round one, throw your bronzes away, or if you have like some goals that benefit playing in round one, like poison stuff with squares or certain things like that, you play in round one, and then round two you try pass most of the time, unless you're a big brain Pro Ladder player that pushes round two and wins in some cases, and then you just go into a long round three, and NR, you look at it and you say, oh, they have a really strong round three, so maybe I don't do it with them. But overall, it's kind of the same game plan for every deck, and that's also like the mid-rangey thing also affects it. So it makes it the sequencing in most matchups and most decks, it's very similar. So it's very slow, like Freddie said, and then it's always the same sequencing. And then when you fuck up on the one play that you have to not fuck up, you fuck it up when you lose. You're like, shit, like why did I just spend 15 minutes playing this game against the same net deck every time? So it makes it much more tedious. If there was less meta snapshots, which are great, but if there was less, people would play different decks with different variations, and if the decks weren't all mid-rangey, they would feel different, and it would feel like the rounds play differently. But right now, everything is very copy and paste and point slamming, and it makes playing many games in a row very annoying because you're doing the same thing. And if you fuck up the one moment in that 1 hour stretch where you weren't supposed to fuck up, all of a sudden it feels like you didn't do anything, you didn't climb at all. So I guess it kind of ties in with it being slow gameplay wise, and I think that's another like mental, like psychological reason why it feels slow.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, we are trying our best as TRS. We don't produce any snapshots. But yeah, I mean, it's a fair point. That's a really interesting points that you guys are making. Yeah. I was thinking about like a certain card or like
Freder, no Freder. There we go. We did it.
I think it makes you seem mad that you keep playing the game that okay, I'm gonna play against the very same deck or an iteration of that deck. And sometimes you have this feeling, I'm wasting my time. I'm playing games are longer. I think that a lot of people are gonna agree. Games are longer. Even if I look at my own content, it's often 15 minutes instead of 10. And at the end, somebody plays a card like Verdea, and you can't counter it, or they cycle their scenario in one turn, and you have the feeling like, I just waste 15 minutes because I can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So I agree with you guys that the game should feel smoother and faster, and net decking I don't want to say it's a problem, but I understand why people net deck, because not everyone has the time to play as much as professionals player do. So if you are a casual player, you are not gonna reinvent the wheel. You're not gonna mess around in deck builder yourself. You're just gonna pick the best deck or the best couple of decks and have fun with it.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ruin the day of those who try to play off meta decks, who try to invent something themselves? Sure, but I don't think it can be prevented.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think
but
if they're not.
No, I think overall Gwent as a community and the way the metas get solved and work, it's very different to when it was in open beta, for example, or even closed beta before that. It was much less solved. It was much less public. Now there's obviously it's not a bad thing. It's just how communities and games kind of evolve. But now with different competitive teams also and different snapshots and the meta being solved very quickly. It makes it just adds on to the repetitive factor, and it's not, I think, as fun and rewarding, and it's almost robotic almost in the way that pro ladder players solve the meta, span the same decks, kind of feed on the lesser players that are on pro ladder and get really high scores. And if you think about competing, even if you're a good player or you think you have the potential to be a good player, it's a lot of hours, a lot of the same deck. It just isn't an environment that kind of makes you want to play 8 hours a day every day like I used to back in closed beta. It was very different, I think, overall. But that's how it works, I think. I mean, that's how it is with.
Yeah, with card games in general, I don't know if you can ever avoid net decking. If you just queue into someone and they have a better deck than you, you're gonna change your cards and play that deck, right?
Yeah.
Just whether it happens through going on teamartusa.com or this guy I saw on Twitch was doing this, or this opponent that I played against had a good deck. People are always going to gravitate to stealing, I guess, or being inspired by other people's deck ideas. But maybe the issue is more so in there not being enough sort of options. If there are a lot of options and a lot of different things you can play, then you can imagine that even if you net deck, there are still things that you could change that would make it a little bit better. Someone who comes up with their own thing might not and probably won't have the best formula for that. And I think every patch the game goes through, there are more cards, and in theory that should mean that net decking is not as profitable, or that at least creativity is rewarded more. And I think we're getting to that stage already, because when I go through the deck builder and try to make a deck, there's just so many cards now. You can pick so many different things, and definitely you can take a net deck and you can easily change a couple of cards at least to maybe be a bit more optimal against what you're playing against, or just within the deck itself. And maybe, I don't know, I guess there's a difficulty, because if you want to climb and do well and be competitive, then you are incentivized to just play, when in reality it might be more beneficial in terms of win rate and to actually find the better deck. But that requires testing, so then you're kind of killing your win rate in the meantime, right? And so
Yes.
I think at the high end of play, you don't get people actually trying to make new decks, because they have to play instead of deck build and craft. And maybe you come up with a good deck, but then it's too late and the meta's moved on or whatever as well. So
that's why I think the season 2 and the qualifier system is going to really, really mix things up a lot, and make if you got top 64 on ladder and you're a good player, it's not hard. I mean, you have to grind obviously, but you don't have to grind crazy. If you're a good player, if you're a top 50 player, you're going to get there for sure. And then having a qualifier where you can test tournament strategies and ban strategies and targeting and playing more weird decks that you don't see on ladder, you're going to be rewarded for that. So I think that's a really, really big improvement. and that's going to help mix it up a lot more and not have it be such like a streamlined, efficient like net deck, play best deck, spam it, win games. All right, I qualified. I think it'll make it much more interesting.
I think what could help and what we had in the past is having longer seasons. Like, I've heard that opinion quite a lot. People saying if the season was 2 months, you'd have a period where people just grind and get the best scores, and then once they reach a certain position, they would experiment more with new decks, and they would just play around with new cards and to try to come up with something new, to have some more fun. Like, we've seen that in beta all the time. Like, people just grinded to get something, and once they got it, they'll just mess around with whatever.
Yeah. That's what they said, right? About Pro Ladder back in the day. Like, lots of people playing memes.
Yeah.
In
That was the Pro
Yeah.
Ladder in the beta.
But I can see your point. That's actually really interesting because like you said, right now you grind, you get you stay top 200, top 500. Season is over, you have to grind again. Yeah. Personally, I would like for maybe the season to be 2 months.
Yeah,
in
but
that
one thing that
regard.
Panda mentioned is meta gets figured out really quickly because of all the publicity that Gwent gets. And I would like to change topic, but on the note of publicity, because we are seeing the Witcher games being more popular than ever because of the Netflix show, of course. Do you guys think that it can result in more people being attracted to Gwent?
Sure. I mean, I think it's an obvious. I mean, we saw The Witcher 3 hitting an all-time peak on Steam 4 years or 3 years after release. So obviously,
Yeah,
Five
there
almost.
was. I found out about Gwent because of The Witcher 3. I'd never played card games or Hearthstone or
too.
anything
Yeah,
before
same.
that. So the same way that worked, I think it's a very possible thing that The Witcher show will not only make it much better for CDPR with their Witcher 3 obviously being a huge thing, and they're probably selling a ton of expansions now as well. People that played the game initially but never finished it or never played the expansions. And Gwent, I think, is an obvious that I think CDPR should try and capitalize that in some way because it's literally free publicity. Like when they saw the announcement that there's a Witcher series on Netflix, like I don't know, they started praying or thanking the gods because that's like literally free money for them, basically.
Oh yeah,
It's
definitely. It's free marketing.
advertisement. But the thing is, there is no Gwent in The Witcher.
Yeah. It's probably
Not in the
quite
series, yeah, that's true.
indirect. Yeah, I mean, I wonder how many people playing the Witcher 3 have already tried Gwent or even know it's a card game distinct to that game.
Yeah,
Maybe there should be
standalone.
some kind of push to make people aware of Gwent outside of Witcher 3, like maybe within the game somehow.
Yeah.
Like, hey, do you like Gwent? Well, you can come play, that sort of thing.
Yeah, wherever they
Otherwise,
have like the expansion, like I assume they have like an in-game thing where you have like expansions or like where you can access the store from the game. If they had also like standalone Witcher Gwent card game, that would include I think that would increase the player base by quite a bit. I think as well.
yeah, I guess I'm a little bit worried that Gwent and how it's kind of viewed as by CD Projekt is that it's kind of this like little side project that's not really tied into their main sort of stuff like Witcher and Cyberpunk. So, I'm not super sure that they want to contaminate their marketing or brand or whatever by promoting Gwent through the other brands or IPs or whatever.
Are you
I
saying
believe-
that Gwent is a little bit of an unwanted child?
Or the black sheep.
I mean, I heard that Risik, he moves from Gwent to like Cyberpunk,
Yeah.
for example. So what you're saying, yeah, I mean,
We've seen that before. We've seen Luigi moving to Cyberpunk,
oh yeah, Luigi moved as well, yeah,
and a couple of
those-
other people.
I mean, there've been huge successes for CDPR, and as a company, they're considered by the general gaming culture and ecosystem as like this one of the companies to look up to, and they do everything right. They're not predatory with like their microtransactions, they're not like a big bad company that you want to hate, like EA or something like that. They're kind of considered like a friend almost.
Ubisoft.
And they have this image, and image is a lot in when it comes to marketing, when it comes to all this, like the peace of mind you have in your customers. And yeah, Gwent wasn't the success that it was supposed to be. I mean, Hearthstone, it was supposed to be a Hearthstone killer when it came out initially, and there was like the hype around it doing that. I think it's still a great game, and I think it still fulfills its role in like the CCG genre, but it isn't, as good as everything else that you expect from CDPR, like The Witcher 3, like Cyberpunk, I think will be.
And
So yeah, I think
one thing that people kind of forget about is they could have discontinued Gwent. They could have said, okay, the project did not yield the result we were looking for, but they continue developing Gwent, and we are actually getting competitive season 2. And
Yes.
a lot of people were thinking there's not gonna be season 2. Season 1 is gonna end at some point in the future, and that's it. They're gonna focus on the mobile release and the Android/iOS audience, with more microtransactions and not that much competitive play. But that's actually not true. We are having season 2. And with that being said, guys, your first thoughts on the format of season 2, the roadmap, and basically everything we've heard so far.
Yeah,
go ahead, Freddie.
I think it looks pretty good. Obviously, the one complaint people are going to have is the prize pools are obviously a lot smaller than for the first season. Like now you've got opens, which are kind of like little Gwent slams with maybe some extra money depending on how that goes, and that could be quite a considerable deal. Depending on how many people buy cosmetics. But then you've also got the complaint that all that money will go to the winner, apparently. Whether or not that's confirmed, whether or not that can change is another question. But if that is the case, then it means, the chance for a lot of different players to compete and make some kind of profit or living from it is going to be not super high. Not necessarily the end of the world. It can definitely still be a fun side thing for a lot of people who can maybe, get a little bit of, pocket money if they manage to make it. Or even if they do very well, then they can maybe transition that into some kind of future. But yeah, it's a little bit underwhelming. You look at the first season and it was like, wow, all this crazy stuff going on. Really cool locations for the tournaments and just a very high production value, all this big prize money, etc., etc. I think we're unlikely to see anything on that scale ever again, which is kind of sad. And it definitely kind of leaves the impression that we're maybe in like a little bit of a worse time in terms of the popularity, health of the game kind of aspect. But at the same time, it's definitely better than having nothing, for the people who play it.
Yeah. I think the format's very good. I think it's gonna be an unpopular opinion, but I think right now with the announcement for season 2 and kind of the format and the prize money they have, it's now proportional to what the Gwent community is. I think there was huge expectations when it released initially, and the esports system they created for it, and the community and the player base and the general need for Gwent in the gaming and esports ecosystem didn't, like, the demand wasn't met basically. And right now, I think it's proportional. I think like the community there is, and the Twitch viewership, and the general investment there is, $10,000 for a prize pool isn't bad, And a lot of pro players, I think they got kind of badly accustomed in a way to how good it was in season 1. I mean, there was big prize monies. It wasn't an incredibly. I'm not going to say the like player base, the pro players weren't competitive. But now it's finally a point where there's a lot of tournament preparation. There's a lot of like in team. But at the beginning, I mean, there was a lot of like weird decks, weird people like getting very high on the ladder, like weird shit. It wasn't super competitive. I mean, I was at the top of the ladder at some point at the beginning, so you can imagine how like not very competitive it was. And I think now it's finally getting to a point where the expectations and the demand have like gotten to the same point. People that were accustomed to having very big prize pools and all this guaranteed almost if you're a very good player that could grind are going to be mad about it. But I think it is what it is. I mean, I think it's obviously, I'm very happy that there is a season 2 even, which I think I wasn't super sure was going to happen. I was pretty sure it wasn't going to happen actually, and I think 10,000 plus the crowdfunded amount, which could be 5,000, could be. I mean, it's hard to say. I think it's not a bad amount. I think and especially with the qualifier system now, where you don't have to be top 8 and grind a billion games every season. You can be good and just win the tournaments and the qualifiers. It opens up to, like Freddie said, to make it a side thing, and maybe some people can't live only off of Gwent, and that's life. I mean, you're trying to play a video game for a living, sometimes it doesn't work out. That's just how the industry is right now. It's still growing and it's still becoming a more established and a more secure thing financially. And that's part of life. Maybe you have to study on the side and play Gwent on the side and maybe qualify and get some, like Freddie said, some extra money. Great. But you can rely on Gwent to live. And it's sad, but I think it's a long time coming. And now it's finally like the expectations have been met and it's not a strain on CDPR, basically, how it was last season, where you had huge tournaments and huge prize money and very little viewers and very little investment from the outside and very little. It wasn't worth it for them, I think, financially.
Yeah, I think that what people keep forgetting about is that Gwent, between Homecoming and the iOS release, was on a pretty bad stretch financially. Like, they were still making money, but not nearly enough to somehow justify the spending in regards to Season 1. So, this season, the prize pool is much lower, but we have to remember, iOS release, Android release at some point this quarter, and if they release like cool MTX that people will be buying to increase the prize pool, I think that, somewhere towards the end of Season 2, and probably Season 3, if there is going to be Season 3, are going to have a much increased prize pool because the money is gonna be there. Like right now, they had to think of something when they are just waiting for Android release, and we've already seen that. iOS release basically quadrupled their income, their profit on Gwent. So Android release is gonna have a huge impact on their budget, and I think that maybe at some point during Season 2, they're gonna change the price pool and they're gonna increase it. We never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible.
Yeah.
One other thing I want to say is it's probably a very smart move of them to turn the qualification into only tournament qualification instead of just directly via ladder after all of the sort of win trading, tie trading, fiesta controversy has been one after another. From the very first sort of join time scandal to, even quite recently. So yeah, that was probably a very smart move, and they won't really have to worry about ever, that being a problem on the ladder again. So that's good for the competitive integrity.
It still matters for the crown points.
True.
For the final Masters of.
I guess my watch is not over.
World Championship. But yeah, I think overall that was always going to be an issue. I mean, with ladders, especially when there was such like region-based matchmaking, and when at a high MMR, you could kind of make it so you can snipe certain players, and yeah, it's ladder qualification systems are always going to be a problem for cheating and win trading and stuff like that. So I'm also happy to see more tournament stuff, and also makes it, like I said before, much better, I think, as a competitive format where you can play different decks and you don't have to grind that many games and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think there should be a mandatory polygraph test for everyone on the verge of qualifying. Period. That will solve all the problems, guys.
Yeah.
But actually, as a pro player, as somebody who made a significant amount of money playing Gwent, how do you prepare for tournaments?
Me personally, or
yeah, you personally, and we are also going to ask Panda that because he is a caster and he has to know his stuff.
And he once participated in his fair share of tournaments. But how do I prepare? Well, usually I play some ladder and stream to get an idea of what the meta is like, and then it goes into super focused like deck building and thinking about finding the really secret, super spicy, mega OP combo wombo, incredible stuff. And maybe that's with another person, or maybe that's alone, depending on if someone's around to help me, which there usually is, so that's cool. And sometimes I play against myself just to be able to work out. I think Coleman does that as well, just to work out, what deck beats what, how to win with a certain thing in a certain situation. You can really control the environment, and there's been tournaments where I felt, so prepared, like I knew what I'd be up against and exactly how the game would play out and exactly how I would play my cards and whatnot before even actually playing it. And usually stuff doesn't go as you plan, so it's not maybe not even worth doing all of that, but it does help to be prepared, I think, and at least have that sort of positive mental side to it going in.
And there was actually a question from the community regarding this topic. Like, do you have more fun preparing, or do you have more fun actually playing once the preparing is done?
Well, I don't know if I could say that playing is very fun because it's very stressful. You know, it's always really quite horrible when you feel like you might make a mistake or you have made a mistake and you're like weighing a decision, and that decision could be worth, you know, thousands of dollars. So definitely the whole environment of playing in the tournament and just like being there, being around all the other players, you know, chilling out in a hotel, going and having food and doing makeup and stuff for the videos and all that stuff's really fun. And after you win a game or whatever, that's really great. But definitely there's a lot of stress in playing. As for the preparation, I mean, I don't know. Some of it is fun for sure, especially when you find like a really good idea or something that you think could work. But there's also a lot of, again, stress with that and worrying about deadlines and, you know, having to find something before it's too late and worrying you don't have the best thing. So there's good and bad to both, but
Speaking of preparations and good ideas, I have to ask this. Angulem, was it a good idea, or did you just think of it and thought, okay, I'm gonna meme during the tournament?
to be honest, I think Angulem was probably the peak of my brain. I don't think I've ever come up with anything better than that.
Freddy's brain.
So I was pretty happy with that one, to be honest. But it didn't, like, the miscalculation I did for that tournament was the meta was very engine heavy and engine based, and I was playing on a meta that was a bit too old. I was playing on like a hyper thin centric meta, where everyone was playing really greedy big decks and not engine based. And then I don't know what I was thinking, because Angulem is countering engines and everyone was playing engines. So if I just built my lineup to also counter engines with Angulem, it would have been like super easy to win the tournament. But I kind of messed up there. So I need to maybe you know, be a little bit more conscious of the current meta when preparing next time.
But it's funny, right? Because you introduce these kind of cards in the tournaments. Like every tournament, people will expect you to come up with something new. You know, it's like really cool.
Yeah, no,
to have a player like you in the community.
Yeah, no, I've kind of, I don't know why, but I've always had that goal since one of the Gwent slams. I think it was the one that I brought Gwent or whatever. I don't know. I felt like I was very, very fortunate in being able to play in these tournaments, and like to kind of repay that karmic debt, then I would have to always bring something to entertain and you know, spice things up. I feel like I've done that reasonably well. So
I feel Panda is not happy about something. He keeps shaking his head.
He has to commentate on those kind of decks.
I remember I remember that game. I remember exactly that tournament. I know exactly what he brought in that Northern Realms deck, and he literally threw away money by bringing that card. So, as a responsible person that I tend to be, when I saw the card, I'm like, Freddy, are you stupid? And when he lost with it, I'm like, okay, that was deserved. Like, I was... that's how it should have been. He lost the 50-50, I think it was. I don't know how the card worked back then, but it was like a 50-50, something like that, right?
Yeah.
And you lost it, and if you had any other gold card, you would have won that. There was like a 5 points you needed or something like that. Or
it was
6.
like less than, and it ended up being like negative value or whatever.
Yeah. So.
Well, no, I don't know. Like, probably, but I feel like, you know, maybe if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't have won the challenger. You know what I'm saying? Like, potentially, by memeing and not allowing your memes to be dreams, you actually are gaining some kind of you know, favor with the gods. Like, maybe me bringing Angulem will mean I win World Masters because the, you know, the universe favors memes.
I mean,
are you saying that Angulem is a sacrificial card?
Oh wow.
Okay, okay. Let me take that back. Angulem was very strong. Very
I think that was. I wasn't.
It was a good choice.
I wasn't mad about that. I was mad about the little deck where you brought a card that was literally 50-50, 100% meme. There was no tech value or any kind of. You couldn't defend it, including that card in your deck, and you brought it anyway to a tournament with $10,000 prize pool.
I can defend it by saying the Twitch clip that it spawned was just magnificent.
That's why we do things, for the Twitch clips.
Exactly.
Heck yeah.
We gotta wear ourselves out with quality content.
And Panda, how do you prepare as a caster, and how do you react to people basically bringing memes to tournaments. Because we've seen Super JJ doing that as well. Like he brought a spy deck that was like so out of meta, it was essentially an act of madness.
Yeah, memes make things interesting, at least. From a caster perspective, it kind of, I mean, obviously, if you're looking at it from my perspective of trying to do a very good job as a caster, you want everything to be as predictable and uniform and easy to explain as possible, so you can learn. Obviously, when I prepare for an event, if I haven't been playing Gwent super regularly before that, I normally take a 2-3 week period before an event starts to play every meta deck that might be in the tournament, every faction, understand how the matchups work, and obviously talk to different players, talk to Freddy, talk to other teams, and see kind of what is being brought. And then once we actually have the deck list, we get them maybe like a week or 4 or 5 days before the tournament starts. I can start looking at like more specific. I have like a scope of all the possible interactions that can occur, and so I have to know exactly in every single scenario like what things can happen, so that I'm prepared to explain everything to the viewers. Obviously, my role, because when Gwent first came out, I was kind of more on the player side and pretty competitive at that. My role when I got hired, and my role still now, is kind of the analyst role and kind of explaining the more intricate things. So I'm kind of as near to a pro player's level of understanding of the game compared to other casters. So it's kind of my job to know the game very well. So that's sometimes a hard feat, because you have to explain what the smartest players in the world and the best players in the world are going to do. And to they do that, you have to be kind of close to that level. So it requires some preparation, not so much playing that many games. I mean, you have to get the feel for the decks, but just understanding and talking to players helps with knowing like all the different interactions and all the different matchups and why you do certain things, and why also like knowing how Conquest works and the bans and everything, and trying to explain that to viewers as well. But overall, trying to make something very complex easier to understand. So it's not always easy. You get a lot of flack and a lot of criticism sometimes, but after 15 or 20, whatever many events I've done with Gwent and other games, it becomes a lot easier. So I know if I'm doing a good job. Sometimes you make mistakes. It's happened before, but overall, I'm pretty happy with my casting work overall. So just keep doing what I do, I guess.
Yeah, you said that sometimes you make mistakes, but I think that these mistakes often become like some sort of memorable moments. Like maybe you mispronounced something, or maybe you gave a card a nickname. Like we all remember when Flake and McBeard talked about Iron Justice instead of Iron Judgment, and that became a meme. Or when Jagras called Roderick Rodriguez. Do you have any moments like that yourself? Like something that you mispronounced or you made a mistake, but it was funny in a way, and you will always remember it that way?
I'm not sure funny, because I'm a very like I criticize my own. So I find some humor in it, obviously, of course, but when I mess up and I know I messed up, I don't like messing up, because not only because I want the viewer to have the best possible experience and not confuse the viewer or make them think something like a card works one way and works a different way, but also like the flack you get after it. Obviously, Reddit and Twitter, and personally, it doesn't affect me as much. I know it affects other casters and maybe other people more if they get criticized, but it's still not great to see, especially in certain situations, like the game being kind of deadish the last year. Obviously, there was like a lot of flack for casters and people that weren't playing the game, and then you mess up. It's like, oh, you see, you messed up because you weren't playing 800 games of Gwent every month. So things like that, they add up in a way. So it's not fun to make mistakes, obviously, but there have been some humorous things, of course. With casting, it's kind of improvising for many hours in a row, so there's going to be a lot of mistakes, a lot of humor, a little bit of everything, basically. I mean, it's we're humans after all, so anything can kind of happen in a broadcast, and trying to contain it to something professional is sometimes difficult.
Yeah, you said that you are very critical of your own work, so I assume that you always want to appear professional. So on a scale from 0 to 10, how ashamed did you feel of wearing those flamboyant suits during the tournament?
I mean, some of them are fine. At the beginning, obviously we have the same stylist for all the events, or for the past 2 years maybe. So at the beginning, it was like very neutral for me. I think that was my aura, was very like neutral, like nothing risky, like just normal colors. And I would kind of complain to her in like a cheeky way. So over time, she's gotten me like the more spicy suits. So that's my own fault, so I can't really complain about it. But yeah, I think it's fun. Having a stylist give you certain suits and certain combinations that I would never wear personally, because I don't think it looks good, or because of confidence reasons, or like I don't want to go like that out there in some styles. But in the setting of like a tournament and all this, I kind of go with the flow and go with the memes, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way of dealing with it.
Yeah, definitely. Back to a more serious topic. Your thoughts on automated tournament and the spectator mode, because they said we are working on them. Well, they have been saying that a lot in the past. We still haven't seen anything of these two features, but do you think they're gonna have a significant impact on the community? And as a player and a caster, like, would you possibly think of appearing in a tournament that's organized by the community using these two features?
Yeah, I mean, even with like Gwent stuff, like a year and a half ago, there was already a lot of spectator or tournaments being done, community tournaments being done, and there was like team tournaments even, and a lot of different things that were fun, but were a hassle to set up because people had to be handling OBS and handling editing, and it was like an overnight thing. We had to send huge files, and some people just wouldn't record the files properly, and it wasn't live, so a lot of downsides. But once you fix that issue and you have automated tournaments in spectator mode, it allows for the community to do many more things. And obviously for me as a caster, I can work much more closely with the community and create content in kind of what I do best, which is casting, which you can't really do now. It's only like tournament to tournament basis, and that might be like a month or 2 or 6 sometimes between tournaments. So I don't feel as part of the community, whereas that would make me, I think, much more involved overall.
Yeah, I'd be quite interested to see how the tournament mode actually works, like, because I don't think it's going to be like properly integrated into the game, right? From what I've heard, it's going to be like, yeah,
like a website, I've heard, I think.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
a website kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that should work fine, right? As for playing in them, I don't know, like I haven't really, on some level, I haven't felt that sort of community aspect. I haven't really been, streaming much. I haven't been watching streams very often, so I feel a bit disconnected. But there's always potential for that to happen.
Yeah, the thing is with community tournaments, sometimes it takes like 6-7 hours straight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And it's
it
a
can be
lot
a
of
big
time you
commitment.
have to invest for a little reward that you might get. So that's what Tilbot also said when we had the podcast with Tilbot. He also said, I don't play community tournaments because I don't get anything from it, and I have to spend a lot of time sitting there.
Yeah, it's time you could be spending grinding ladder or something instead.
Yeah,
right?
right? Yeah.
It can be
I
tricky.
think it's kind of similar for Freddie and me when we both started playing Gwent. It was very much a passion thing, and very much you want to play, you don't get anything for it, but you just love the game, and it felt very rewarding to play a lot.
And then you just
and
We are waiting for the end of the story, Panda.
As the
cliffhanger.
Whereas now, I think because of players getting accustomed to kind of having a feedback loop where they make money off of Gwent and they live off of Gwent and they get value off of Gwent in a way with playing pro ladder and stuff like that, it's much more a job than a hobby. And I think that's for me as well. So that kind of changed the dynamic a lot. I think my relation, at least with Gwent, and probably Freddy's as well, and a lot of players. So back in the day when you loved Gwent and you were just playing a ladder for no reason whatsoever for 8 hours a day, and there was a community tournament, you're like, great, like this is fantastic. But nowadays there's like so many things to do and so many, I don't know. It's a different dynamic, I think.
Oh yeah,
like we've grown up,
Yeah.
kind of. We're adults now.
And are you guys happy with how pro ladder and how the means to qualify for tournaments look like right now? Is there, if there was one thing you could change, like let's say tomorrow you get a call from CDPR and they say, okay, you are already in Warsaw, let's meet and let's hear your ideas about how to qualify for tournaments. How do you envision the qualification process?
For me, I've always had a very, I wouldn't say super strong relationship with Vlad, but I think out of the whole community, I'm probably the person that has talked to him and discussed things with him the most. Obviously, him being the head of esports, he has a lot of say in these things. And a lot of what it's implemented in some way or another, I'm not going to say is because I told Vlad, but we discussed it, and like some of the qualifiers are like rewarding the top 16 and then having like a broader qualifier, stuff like that, were ideas that I think just make sense, and I've talked to him about before as well. But I think they make, I think most of the system I think works pretty well the way they wanted to do it, and also you can't please everyone. Like if you make it only through ladder qualifiers, it's great and it's more competitive in a way. It's more rewarding. Like you get the better, more skilled players, but you also have to play a shit ton of games. And if the prize pool gets lowered, then all of a sudden playing so many games in a month becomes less attractive to the best players. So I think the reduction of the prize pool and it being overall a smaller thing, it makes sense to also change the way the qualification works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of feeling a bit torn on Pro Ladder generally as a concept. Like I kind of like the old rank system a little bit. There's just something about I think I think Chezzy made a post about this on Reddit.
Yeah, and Spiro said something about in one of his videos.
Yeah.
Multiple
But
people are talking about
definitely the fluctuations in MMR that you can have on a normal kind of ranked ladder are it's quite exciting, albeit quite stressful as well if you need to do like a final climb and one game can cost you everything. But that can happen on Pro Ladder as well. So the way that Pro Ladder works just does feel a little bit boring. Sometimes you just have to grind. You're like forced to grind out a certain amount of games with a certain faction, and then you're going to have to grind up those peaks, and it just takes a long time. And there are definitely benefits to it because you of course have to play lots of factions. You have to be very good at lots of factions. You are getting the most kind of balanced and disciplined players qualifying for the tournaments, but there's definitely some kind of appeal to a little bit more chill and less sort of rigid rank system. But yeah, I'm not sure I would change anything about this current system that they've got. It seems kind of good, other than the prize pool structure, which yeah. And I don't know. I do kind of like ladder qualification in general, just straight ladder qualifying, because it means if you are a good player and you are determined to qualify, then you can just play for X amount of hours, and in that sense, it kind of acts like a job and something stable where if you commit the time, you're going to be able to get there. With tournament qualification, through an actual tournament that you play, it's a bit more higher variance, and you might not get in because you're unlucky, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But of course, you've got then the problem of cheating and people not being able to spend that amount of time to qualify. So I don't know. Maybe if they'd kept some kind of top 1 or 2 players qualified to opens, might have
that's a
been a
good
good idea. But at that point, it's so hard to even get top 1 or 2 that is it even going to benefit that many people?
You see that in other sports like football too, right? Like the top 2 they promote to the other division.
Oh, relegation system.
Yeah, the relegation system, for example, and then the other teams that got like a 4th, 5th place, they have to play against each other to actually promote. It's
yeah. I was surprised that the ladder qualification was removed entirely. I didn't think it would be only through tournaments, only through qualifiers. Like Freddie said, I think it's much more fair and much more optimal for competitive integrity if you have a ladder system and people play 5,000 games in a month, because you're 100% going to find top 8 players in the world. If people don't have infinite time, and that's not the most fun system. I think it's a boring system, but it's the most optimal and the most efficient to find the best players that play Gwent. So I think the qualifier system makes that kind of like a middle ground where you still have to get top 64, you still have to play ladder, but you have to play qualifiers now. And having a different ranked ladder system altogether that doesn't include pro ladder would make it even more casual in a way, but more fun as well. So that's kind of the balance that I think every CCG has always had between casual, fun, unpredictable, and not as competitive and not having the same integrity, or very high competitive integrity, very fair, but kind of boring because at the end of the day, you're just playing, numbers and values, and you can kind of solve the equation pretty quickly.
Yeah. I would like to circle back to what BJ said about the relegation system. Imagine being so trash at Gwent that CDPR tells you have to play in the 2nd division.
Oh, that would be interesting, actually.
Yeah, that's kind of the normal ladder, no?
It is, especially on my level. I would say that's like the very amateurish local level.
I mean, I quite literally got relegated this season to the second division because I was 570th instead of 500, and I have to climb 5 more rank, which is not a fun thing.
Exactly. It kind of feels the same, yeah.
But yeah, guys, I think we've exhausted the topic of competitive play or Gwent in general, and there's a couple of questions that we've gathered the last couple of days relating to what you do outside of Gwent. So with that being said, we are moving to the Q&A section of the podcast. And I think the first question is going to be, what's the story behind your friendship and the move to Warsaw?
Well, Freddie obviously qualified to most tournaments, and I was casting most tournaments.
No, Panda. Whoa. You're telling this wrong. Okay. So, once upon a time, Panda was a streamer. He was a Gwent streamer, and he really liked Gwent, and he was playing Gwent. And me too. We were both streaming Gwent. It was when was it? It would have been closed beta, probably, maybe the beginning of open beta, even. Quite a long time ago now. And yes, we were both streaming and playing. And then once upon a time, okay, I already used that. Sorry. And then there was a Gwent Slam qualifier hosted by Life Coach. Actually, before that, there was a Gwent Together tournament, which Panda went to. And I saw him at that tournament. I said, wow, good job, Panda. Very cool. And at that point, I think we knew each other. We were probably acquaintances in some form. Probably played each other on ladder. I think I have a memory of playing against Panda, playing some dumb deck, some Scoia'tael nonsense villain trap. I still have a memory of it, and that was when he was back on Xbox. Anyway, or whatever PS4. I don't know if he was
Xbox.
Okay. Yeah. Panda kind of scrubbed out the first Gwent Together a little bit, unfortunately for him. But then came the opportunity to qualify for the first Gwent Slam, and I qualified for it, and then Panda qualified for it as well, and we were the two qualifiers for EU, I guess, or just in general.
No,
I don't know.
Those two qualifiers.
So we both qualified to the Gwent Slam, and that was where we first met. And from then on, we were great friends.
I'm gonna make a quick incision. Take into account that when closed beta was happening, Freddie was a very young 18-year-old guy, and when he first started deck building and streaming and became known in the community, my first impression was, this guy is a fucking asshole. To be completely honest, I've told you before, Fred.
Okay, that's Merchant thought this.
You were like a very, I don't know,
arrogant.
Very arrogant, very like. You could tell you were 17, 18, right away. I was like, I don't know, 23 at the time. So I'm like, this guy, I'm not going to talk to this guy. But over time, I've known Freddie as a person better, and I think he's also evolved possibly in the past 2-3 years a little bit, and now we're good friends and we're living together apparently. So that's the end of the story.
I mean, we have to see proof, right? You have to walk to the other room.
So I have to go up these stairs.
I think you should.
Yeah,
I think you can come here, Freddie. Because you go down the stairs, so it's easier, right? It's less effort overall. And we have a better mic here. It's like the snowball, so it's Omni, whatever.
Yeah.
Share podcast, guys. Share podcast confirmed.
But he's not gonna hear you guys. I guess we can share.
Hello.
Hey, Freddie, how you doing, buddy?
Good.
Long
So
time
we're
no
back.
see, man.
Long time no see.
This has never been done before. But that's the general story.
Not on this podcast. No, it's never been done before. But since you guys are right next to each other, any plans to organize a community event, maybe in Warsaw, where you actually live?
I'm not sure what the demand for that would be or how many people would sign up to it, but yeah, possibly. Also, I think with the next event, we probably won't be at a hotel. We'll just have our flat, obviously. So there might be some community shenanigans happening in said flat with people coming. After parties and the like. Mm-hmm. So stay tuned for some behind the scenes videos, maybe, but maybe not. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Freddy
BJ
looks like he's having a rough time standing there.
Yeah, Freddy looks like his back hurts or something.
Yeah, I'm having to. Crap.
I'm
I don't have
not-
a chair
I'm-
for you. You can stop.
I'll sit on your
Don't
lap.
break.
Sitting on your lap. Oh god,
no,
that's
let's not- let's
a
not-
meme.
let's not let that get
I
there.
think it's the sequel of the it's hard raising your kid tweet.
Oh wow. But what were you gonna ask me?
Yeah, BJ. More Q&A questions.
Yes.
You
Yeah.
can get a stool from the kitchen.
Any suggestions for a cool
Are we doing
cosmetic?
this for- Okay.
Or you can go back to yourself.
Okay, guys.
I mean,
now we have 30 seconds to trash talk Freddy.
So as I was saying, he was a little piece of shit when he started playing Gwent. You could tell right away. But he's evolved over time. I think I've become his dad, and he's become a very nice young child. I mean, what, Freddie? What were you saying?
Hello?
Hello, Freddy. So yeah, a question from Lionheart. Do you have any suggestions? You both. Do you have any suggestions for a cool cosmetic that CD Projekt Red could offer as a part of the crowdfunding items?
I think they should do a picture of Panda's face as one of the avatars.
With a signature, otherwise I would not buy it.
Yes.
On
it's
a
an
more
up-
serious note, I think a card back is obvious. Like the Gwent Masters logo on a card back is like, I think probably the first thing
I
they'll
mean,
think
that's
about.
cool actually.
They could also do a team stuff, like Team Aretusa stuff. They could do player stuff. Maybe not the faces of the players, because that might be a bit weird. But
Yeah.
they could kind of work on like avatars with the players' faces. That could be like interesting in a weird way, but interesting. And maybe
yeah.
like titles of some sense. Maybe not like the exact name, but like a nickname for certain players, or like, I don't know, like Tailball, like some kind of like robot thing that you can make the connection if you follow the esports scene and stuff like that. I don't know. They can get creative
Cool.
with it, but I think there's a lot they can do with titles and avatars and card backs.
I mean,
And-
CD Projekt could even evolve the players themselves. Like, what do you
Mhm.
want? What was an
Yeah.
avatar, or like
Mhm.
as a card back, like a personalized card back? Because in League of Legends, for example, like you have these teams, when they win worlds, they get their own skins and they can personalize it. I think that's a great idea, man. Yeah.
Yeah, and it kind of ties in with the idea of the money going towards the tournaments, right?
Yeah.
Pretty
Mhm.
logical link to make. You buy
And
an Adzakov thing and then more money for the pros. I don't know.
Actually, I think there should be an item in the shop that would be very expensive, but it would allow to turn yourself into a card. So, they are working on expansions and they release so many cards every expansion. So maybe that could be a thing. Like, you can buy it for an obscene amount of money, and they're gonna turn you into card. Kind of like Busha was turned to a card, and Luigi and Ostre. And allegedly McBeard, which is actually not true. But yeah, maybe that could be a thing, That would be a huge influx of money that could support tournaments.
But so you're saying the only people that could get that card have to buy it?
Yeah, and what I'm saying is, you pay CDPR and they take your ugly mug and they turn it into a card that's gonna be released in the next expansion.
Okay, because otherwise you get these discussions about pay to win. Like, oh man, that Freddybabes card, that's too good, man. You bought it for money. Yeah, okay, that's a great idea. Yeah.
It's only about art. Like, you would basically, get turned into a card that will be released next expansion.
I mean, that's cool.
I think having like every tournament obviously is going to be unique in the way that it's like Gwent, the first open of season 2. If they can tie it to like a certain theme or a certain, like, I know CS:GO does stickers for different events, and it's like IEM Cologne 2015, whatever, like an exclusive thing. They could also do that for certain card backs or titles or like something cosmetic related, and also make like the viewer rewards, instead of being like a shitty bronze card, have it tied into the cosmetics as well, or like tied into, I don't know, some kind of esports related cosmetic as well.
Yeah.
Looking at the Q&A questions, actually I'm gonna turn these two into one. If you were in charge of the development process, what would you change in Gwent? And this, I guess, includes transplanting features from other CCGs. Like, let's say that, tomorrow Jason Slama says, fuck this shit, Freddy, you're now in charge.
Oh boy. I don't know. I don't want to like trash talk the devs because I feel like I've done that quite a lot in my past. However, uh, um, I feel like maybe there needs to be like some more focused sort of design direction. Like as we were talking about earlier, a lot of the times things change and it's like really counterintuitive. Like they make a change to a card and then they introduce a card that causes the same problem, or like they introduce a mechanic that incentivizes something they've already said they don't want to incentivize in the game. So, sometimes it seems like the design direction's a little bit confused, or maybe there are different people working on different aspects of an expansion and not kind of linked together, properly. But yeah, I guess that would be it. Just have a bit more cohesion going on and a bit more direction generally.
And
Yeah.
would you want to involve the community in that?
I don't think so.
That's cool. That's cool.
I think overall, when I think about development in card games and how it goes, like the process that they could be taking to develop certain things and how they get to certain cards to exist, I think Gwent the team is doing a pretty good job in development in terms of their creative, kind of like the thing they introduced that are kind of like out there in a way. Like for me, it's very hard to think of, I don't know, Syndicate as a faction.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
whole and just thinking like, oh, I'm developing this game, let's just create Syndicate from scratch. Like, well, how do you even get there? But when it comes to the more minor like math based development and balancing, I think that's where they could improve, because I look at certain cards and I said it before, like the spring cleaning kind of thing. There's just certain cards that don't make sense. Like literally just change these points or these provisions a little bit, and all of a sudden you have a card that makes a lot more sense. So I think they could pick it up in that sense. But that's also a thing of, at the end of the day, Gwent is a business and they want to sell flashy cards, and they're going to focus on the new expansion, and they're not going to look back at old cards that much. It's not, they can do like a ton of work balancing all the old cards, and it'll make the game way healthier probably, but it's not going to sell hard pack.
Yeah.
It's not going to, and it's going to confuse. There's also like a big thing with making a patch note all of a sudden that has like 200 card changes. Like that's also like a issue when you're like trying to get new players into the game, stuff like that. So it's not all that easy. I think it's not just like change the values and that's it. There's downsides to it, but I think once a year won't hurt, to just have a huge overhaul of cards that aren't being played and changing a few of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that makes sense.
And they could apply this concept to many more things, like the partner program, like we've been talking about a little bit. But maybe they could review the program, see like who should be in it, or what the requirements should be, like how should it be changed, and what new things should be added to the program. That could be a thing that they could do like once a year.
Yeah, I mean you see other companies do that as well, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it'd be cool to see some like streamer tournaments as well. I know from Teppen they've been doing a lot of those, and I mean it feels pretty good if you're a streamer and you get to play in streamer-only tournaments. Obviously, it's not very fair for other people, but
I mean, that makes
if they
sense.
need to market in that way, then it could be a thing.
But it will be nice for the streamers, right? Because
Mm.
not every streamer like myself, I don't have that much of a shot to compete. So to compete in like a streaming tournament, I might have a chance,
Yeah, and like most people streaming Gwent, in fact, probably everyone apart from like maybe Pumpkin, I don't know, like maybe there's a couple of other people who can actually support themselves off of it. But if you're not on a team and you're streaming Gwent, it's like there's not really a way it's going to be better than working a minimum wage job in terms of like a career, right? So, just giving a bit of support to people who are willing to stream your game might be an idea. But I don't think the financials are particularly great for Gwent, considering.
Yeah, because I think they used to do sponsored streams.
They had Crip doing Gwent streams, I remember.
Yeah, like I mean, it's nice, right? But I think. But
I don't think it has any lasting effect.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But what will have a lasting effect is Android release. Are you guys gonna play, or are you maybe already playing on iOS? Like, how do you see mobile Gwent? Is it something you would like to play more? Is it something you would like to see develop more, or more like a sidekick to proper Gwent on PC?
I've been playing on my iPhone, but not very often. Kind of only if I need to grind some games and I'm out. There's nothing going on, but yeah, I don't really play it that much. But it's cool, I guess, to have the option.
Yeah, I have an Android phone, so I've been looking forward to it. Obviously, right now, Tepid, for example, has been my go-to like mobile game. If I'm like on a train ride, or even like when I'm doing workouts in the afternoon, I can kind of have my phone and play at the same time, kind of between sets and stuff. So it gives me that option. And if Gwent were on my phone, then yeah, I probably would play it a bit more. And it would give me just another option, like Freddie said, to play it when you're not just at your PC.
BJ, do we have any more questions?
Let's see.
We are already 30 minutes over the mark.
Yeah, we are, man. We are. I mean, a question for Panda by Anti-Health. Are you scared of having to remember every leader ability? I know you already said a couple of times, like Hero ability or like Francisca ability. So yeah, you are still struggling with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of cards that I don't know the name of personally, but because they're not played, and I just obviously especially as a caster, when you go into a tournament, especially once you have a deck list, automatically, if the cards aren't in the deck list, they have no value in my life. I don't want to know their names. I don't want them to be in my head. And it's the same with leaders. There's some leaders that aren't played and haven't been played in all of Homecoming, so I have no idea what their like actual like physical like name. I know what they do, but not their actual name. And it'll be the same for tournaments. I look at a deck list. I look at all the different interactions and possibilities and every piece of knowledge that I need to know to do my job. And if it's not relevant, then I just won't learn it. So leader abilities will be the same. You'll probably see a few of them. Obviously, I'll memorize and learn all the names like I usually do, and that's it basically. But right now, if you tested me on like 100 different card names with like obscure cards, I wouldn't get a very good grade probably.
Okay. Well, okay. One last question. Did you guys gain the card pack?
Oh, did you get the card back? Because I heard that, did you guys gay? Like, what?
No. Did you guys gain the card back?
I
The
get the
snowman
card back, yeah.
or the
The card backs related to the winter event.
No, I got scraps and all. It was terrible.
Yeah, I'm not super huge on the cosmetic stuff. It doesn't really do a lot for me. And I also forget. I mean, when I saw it come out, like I got the first snowman, and then I would play 20 games, and after 20, I would remember, oh wait, there's a snowman I have to be killing. So, yeah, it was also like during the break, I was kind of gone, not playing Gwent for 2 weeks basically. So I did not get the card back. Now I got some titles and stuff, but that's it, unfortunately.
Yeah, me too, man.
Yeah. I play the little snowman in a wild hunt helmet or whatever, so that's pretty epic, but I don't have the card back.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Okay, guys, any closing statements and plugs? Where can people find you if they need to?
I'm hard to find. I'm really hard to find. You can wait for those streams on twitch.tv/ImpetuousPanda. Sometime. Not sure when, but maybe you'll get a stream.
It's a stream of a certain frequency.
And then I'm on Twitter with the same handle on Twitter. But I don't tweet very often either, so I'm just not a very...
Yeah, I don't know. I'm on Twitch, Freddybabes, but I probably won't stream very much. So. It's all good. You should go check out Trinet or Spyro or who's someone on Team Rankstar? Weisenberg.
Yeah, thanks, Freddy. Finally recognizing my existence.
Or Baby Joseph, guys. Okay.
I can
just imagine Freddy like, after the podcast telling Panda, like, who are these guys even?
I mean, you're shouting out the people that created the podcast that people are already watching. I think they know about them if they're watching the podcast, you know?
Yeah,
I think it doesn't make much sense.
I think this through.
You know, when people go, there will be people that will replace those people, you know?
Yeah.
So that's why we are here. We are here to... the future of the new streamers, you know?
Yeah. Though I do remember the first episode with Bibo, and at some point somebody in chat said, who are these guys? People, what are you doing with these guys?
I mean, it was the first episode.
Yeah, I can
like,
imagine.
We were not that known, but I think we are getting.
We
more
still are
known,
not,
you know?
but that's okay.
No,
After having
I-
Freddy and Panda on the show, I think we are back on the map.
As I said already, my mum is a big fan. Or she
He
was.
said that. He actually said that before the podcast.
Yeah.
He did. Okay, BJ, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitch and Twitter, Baby Joses. So that's basically it.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes you will find an article on Team Rankstar
At some point in the future.
at some point in future.
It's been in the works for almost a month now.
Yeah, gotta take my time, you know.
Yeah. You have to perfect every single bit of that article.
Exactly. I don't want to get accused, you know.
Yeah. Okay, guys, you don't need to look for me very far because you are on my channel, but I'll take this moment to actually say a few words about the podcast. If you would like to stay in touch also off stream, you can follow us on Twitter at Novigrad Podcast. If you want to get access to early announcements, you can join our Discord. And if you want to watch this episode or one of the previous episodes, they are all on YouTube. You can just type !podcast and all the links will be in the chat. So I think that's it for today, guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the discussion. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
very
It's
much, guys.
fun
Yeah, we'll
to
rate
discuss.
somebody in a moment. That was supposed to be Lionheart, but Lionheart is not available. That's come.
Yeah.
So we will rate somebody else. So once again, thanks for being here. Thanks for chatting with us. See you guys later.
Bye bye.